Chapter 112. At night, Yi Hao brought Dian Wei alone to the Mountain of Corpses. The Mountain of Corpses had undergone special treatment and were now all skeletons. Therefore, there was no need to worry about a plague. This made Yi Hao feel more at ease. "Master, what are we doing here?" Dian Wei saw Yi Hao circling the Mountain of Corpses, looking left and right. Dian Wei had an evil thought. Master wouldn't be interested in these skeletons, right? Before he could finish his thoughts, Yi Hao slapped him on the head. "What are you thinking about? Hurry up and get to work. Move that tree away from me." Yi Hao observed his surroundings and changed the position of some of the trees. At the same time, he observed his surroundings and compared them with the knowledge he had obtained from the inheritance. He was delighted. This is really a treasure ground specially created for the 10,000 Souls formation. Yi Hao was now confident that he could set up a formation that could kill a martial emperor. Yi Hao took out the materials for the design from Dragon Prison Lake and quickly set it up according to the steps in his mind. However, the design was more troublesome. After a night, Yi Hao had only completed 10% of the design. If not for the legacy in his mind, Yi Hao would have given up long ago. It was too troublesome. During the day, Yi Hao did not want to be discovered. Therefore, he went back to sleep and continued to work at night. On the third day, Zhou Hongling was brought to Yanhuang City by Yi Hao's men. "Greetings to your highness and master." When everyone saw Yi Hao, they all bowed with tears in their eyes. "Sister Ling, why are you all in Shao City? Did something happen to father?" Back in the city lord residence, Yi Hao arranged for everyone to rest. Looking at Zhou Hongling, whose eyes were red, he asked with heartache. "Logically speaking, they should be in Yi. Could something have happened?" Yi Hao was a little nervous. "No, when His Majesty saw you disappear, he arranged for us to leave the country of Yi. We headed west and came to Shao City. We also heard news about your highness." Zhou Hongling was a little shy after Yi Hao wiped away her tears. Her little nose twitched as she spoke. "That's good. Sister Ling, this is for you." Yi Hao heaved a sigh of relief. In his heart, he was most worried about father. He thought that his imperial father was probably afraid that there would be no one to take care of Zhou Hongling and the others in the capital while he was away. If that happened, his imperial brother would come looking for trouble. Are you going to listen or not? So he sent them out to lie low for a while. If you don't, it will be too late. In the end, when it was a freak combination of factors that allowed them to meet first. Yi Hao found that Zhou Hongling had lost a lot of weight in the past few months. However, time was tight, and it would be too late. His heart ached. The appearance of the heavenly spirit would definitely lead to a massacre. Yanhuang City would be the first to bear the brunt and would definitely suffer a destructive blow. Zhou Hongling asked curiously. "Listen." But when she thought of how precious the pill was, she quickly shook her head and refused. When Yi Hao saw the heavenly spirit charging around in the array, this servant didn't do anything. He realized the severity of the situation and did not dare to joke anymore. Yi Hao smiled and stroked Zhou Hongling's hair. The 10,000 Souls array is a pretty good array. Instantly turned red. He won't be able to rush out for a while, Sister Ling. If you continue talking nonsense, he will really come out. Yi Hao looked a little anxious. Zhou Hongling's eyes widened. He had already seen she looked at few of the array foundations of the array. She didn't understand why Yi Hao would suddenly reward her. How many people have you killed? The immortal treasure spirit pinched Zhou Hongling's cheeks. If he had only killed me, bring so many subordinates, the heavenly and you even found would not be so strong. Shouldn't I be thanking you, brat? Also, you couldn't have killed tens of thousands of people, take care of me, right? You're still an ordinary person. Embarrassedly. What if you collapsed just a few 100,000 enemies? Yi Hao saw Zhou Hongling's pondering expression and continued to speak with a smile. Yi Hao only wanted to use the 10,000 Souls array to deal heavy damage to the enemy. Hongling wants to stay by your highness's side forever. That the array would be strengthened by dozens of times during the heavenly. She opened her mouth and swallowed a few 100,000. Relax. That's it. The energy in your body is normal. Spirit fell from the dragon's body to the ground. Feeling
How
the
strong
dense
would the
energy
heavenly
in her body,
Yin spirit
Jill
be to
Hongling
use
was
a
a
few
bit
100,000 lives
She
to
looked
summon it.
helplessly at
This
Yi
was
Hao.
also why
Yi
the
Hao
heavenly
comforted
Yin
her.
spirit of
The
the
energy
Holy
here
Blood
was
Demon
much
Church
stronger
could
than
discover
in Yi.
the heavenly
The
Yin
first
spirit
time she
on
had
Yi
used
Hao's
the
side.
Dragon Tiger
It
pill
was
to
because
break
the
through.
heavenly Yin
It had
spirit
caused the
here
phenomenon
was much stronger
She had
than
even been
it had
mistaken
already
for
made
God.
it feel threatened.
The energy here
Hence,
was much
it sent
stronger
martial
than in Yi.
emperor experts
Jill
to
Hongling
investigate.
quickly opened her eyes
Brat,
and looked
if this happened
excitedly
to
at
others,
Yi Hao.
it would be
Your
harder than
Highness,
ascending
I
to the
feel
heavens.
that I've become
Currently,
very strong.
there are only
Have
3
I
ways
become
to
a
deal with
martial
the
artist
heavenly
now?
Yin spirit.
Yi Hao was
no matter
also
which
very
way
happy
it
to
is
see Jill
extremely
Hongling's
difficult.
happy expression.
The immortal treasure
When he was
spirit
a fool,
said to Yi
it
Hao
was Jill
seriously,
Hongling who had
Yi Hao
always
listened
taken care of
carefully.
him.
This
The
was
first
something
method
Yi Hao
is
would
to
never
eliminate
forget.
the heavenly
So
Yin
in his
spirit
heart,
before it
Jill
awakens
Hongling's
its
position was
intelligence.
second
However,
only to Yi
even
Batian.
if the heavenly Yin
You're a
spirit
martial
doesn't
artist
awaken
now.
its intelligence,
Moreover, you're
it's
already
still
a
something
10th
you
rank
can't
martial
do.
artist,
The
the
same
same
rank
it's
as
the
Zilong.
lives of hundreds
Yi Hao
of
said
thousands
slowly.
of people.
At the same
Summoning
time,
the heavenly
he
Yin
handed the
spirit
high-grade
is even
mystic
more
class skill
impossible.
book to Jill Hongling.
The second method is
Sister
to
Ling,
cooperate
this
with
is
the
a high-grade
heavenly
mystic
spirit.
class skill book.
This is also
even
the
in our
simplest
country,
method.
it's a
But
national
it will
treasure.
also put your
You
life
can
in
cultivate
danger.
according to the
second
contents
method
inside.
mentioned by the
Yi Hao
artifact
wasn't
spirit was
exaggerating.
naturally the method
Yi Hao
used
said
by
that
the
there were
patriarch
high-grade
of the
mystic
blood
class
demon
skills
cult.
books.
But there wasn't even
The
a single
patriarch of
yellow
the blood
class
demon
skill
cult was a
This
martial
skill
sage,
book was a rare
yet he
treasure,
had almost
even
been
in a
devoured
vassal
by the
state.
heavenly Yin
Your
spirit.
Highness, this
The
is
heavenly
too
Yin
precious.
spirit in front
Jill
of Yi
Hongling
Hao
was
dare
much
to
more
take it.
powerful than
Something
the
that was
patriarch
considered
of the blood
a
demon
national
cult.
treasure in
This
Yi
was
was very
because the
precious.
heavenly Yin
Jill
spirit
Hongling
would
was
instantly
so
gain
grateful that
sentience
tears
in
welled
order
up in
to
her
cooperate
eyes.
with it.
She didn't
How
think
can
that
we
His
reach an
Highness would
agreement?
treat her so
I'll
well.
go look for him
She
now.
looked at Yi Hao
When
with
Yi Hao
admiration.
heard this, he had such
said,
achievements
if he
at
let
such
the
a
heavenly
young
Yin
age.
spirit rush
Not only
out,
did he
he could
unify
only
the
wait
surrounding
for death.
100 li,
If he
but he
cooperated
also
with
took
the
out
heavenly
so
Yin
many
spirit,
treasures, he might be able
would
to
dare
save
to
his
compare
life.
with him.
Moreover,
I don't
the
have
artifact
any
spirit
other cultivation
said that this
pills
was the
right
easiest
now.
way.
Sister Ling,
Don't be hasty.
there's no way you can
If you want to
slack off,
cooperate with
joked
the
Yi Hao.
heavenly Yin
Yi
spirit,
Hao joked.
you will basically
Jill Hongling
become the
blushed
heavenly
even
Yin
more.
spirit's slave.
She raised her
you
nose
have to
and
think
pouted.
this through. I didn't.
Yi Hao's expression changed.
Yi Hao laughed
in order
when
to
he
survive.
saw Jill Hongling's
He had to
expression.
become a slave
That
of
made
the
Jill
heavenly Yin
Hongling
spirit.
even more embarrassed.
Didn't they say that they
That's
could reach
right.
an agreement?
Sister Ling,
Moreover,
help me
you're
copy
so
this
weak
skill
now.
book into
The
10
heavenly
portions.
Yin spirit
Yi
will
Hao
definitely
suddenly
look down
remembered
on
that
you.
he only had
You
this
won't be
one
able to
cultivation
escape the
skill
fate
book.
of being
It
devoured.
was impossible for
The
him
artifact
to give it to
spirit
everyone.
continued to attack.
That wasn't realistic.
I don't even
he
want
could
to
give
be
a
his
general
slave.
a cultivation
Then I'm just
skill
waiting
book.
for death.
But for soldiers,
That's right.
it depended
I
on
still
their
have a
contributions
teleportation
and
talisman.
performance.
Why
So he
don't
couldn't
I
give them
teleport
a
away
cultivation
now and
skill
come back
book.
to kill
He
him
would
when
first
I'm strong
give the
enough?
soldiers the
Yi
first
Hao was deeply
cultivation
shocked.
skill book.
He
If
suddenly
they wanted the
remembered
next
that he
one,
still
they
had
would
a
have to
teleportation
perform well.
talisman in his
Don't
bag.
look down on a
Back
high-grade
then,
mystic
he had
class skill book.
teleported here
Even
using
Xiao
the
Yun,
teleportation
who had become
talisman.
a martial king
Don't
at such
even
a young
think
age,
about it.
had
You're
only
the master
cultivated
of the
a high-grade
10,000
yellow
souls
class
array.
skill book. No matter
was
where
easy
you
to
run,
imagine
the first
how
person
important
that
this
heavenly
cultivation
spirit
skill
will
book
kill
was.
will be you. The artifact
Chapter
spirit dispelled
113.
Yi Hao's thoughts
A month
of escaping.
passed in the blink
Moreover,
of an eye.
if you run
After
away,
10 days of
what
work
will
by
happen
Yi
to
Hao,
your subordinates?
the myriad souls
This was what Yi
formation
Hao was
finally
most worried
completed.
about. Killing
He frowned
Emperor
and
Wu
asked,
and those
"Can the
below the
Dragon
first
Prison
tier
Lake
was
trap him?"
easy. The
However,
Dragon Prison
Yi
Lake
Hao was not
his
too
greatest
sure
trump
about
card
those
now.
at Emperor Wu's
It
level.
could trap a martial
Yi Hao had
sage.
originally wanted
However,
to test the effects
artifact
of the
spirit's
dragon's
vitality
blood.
was
However,
greatly
after a
damaged
few
now.
failed
It was
experiments,
impossible
Yi
for
Hao
it
could
to trap
only give
a
up
martial
on it.
sage. After the
However,
reorganization,
he was not
the
sure
army had
if it
finally
could trap the
expanded
heavenly
to
Yin
50,000
spirit.
soldiers.
This is also
All
the
the
third
soldiers
method
had gone
that I'm
through
talking
military
about.
training.
The
before
third
they were
method is
considered
one of the most
qualified.
difficult
There
methods.
were a total
There
of
must
8
be
cities.
some conditions.
Other than Yan Huang
First,
City,
you must have
all
the
of them
dragon's
had
blood
5,000
15,000 soldiers.
This is enough to make
Yanhuang
people
City
flinch.
soldiers had
Second,
reached 15,000.
the most important thing
The
is
overall
that you must
strength
have
of
the
the
legendary
cities
heart
was
of Array.
even greater than
You have
before.
both of these things.
These bandits
Therefore,
had a certain
you have the
foundation
opportunity
to begin
to
with,
subdue
after
the
the
heavenly
training in the
spirit
barracks,
for your
as
own
well
use.
as the stimulation
That's why
of
I
martial
said that
arts
this is
and
an opportunity
cultivation
for
methods.
you.
All
The
of them
artifact
used their
spirit's
own
tone
primitive
carried a
power
trace
to cultivate
of envy.
They only
Who could
wanted
have
to
the
perform
dragon's blood
outstandingly
essence
to
and
obtain
the heart of
spirit
Array
tools
at the same
and
time.
be promoted to
Moreover,
nobility. Yi
the
Hao
seven
even
generals
managed
of
to
the
catch
seven
the rare
cities were
heavenly
Huarong,
Yi-Knight.
Zhang Zhu,
This kind
Yang
of luck,
Xiaodao,
how many
Li
people
Jin,
could compare
Zhao
to him?
Zilong, Xiao Yun, and Yan Wei.
He had
What
no
puzzled
impression
Yi Hao
of
was that
anyone
both
who
Zhou
could subdue
Hongling
the
and Zhao
heavenly
Zilong
Yin spirit.
had told him that
Today,
Qin Xiong
he was
had
going
come
to
to
witness
find him,
it personally.
but Yi Hao had
Moreover,
not seen him
this
at all.
person was his
Yi Hao
master.
had sent out
Why
hundreds
didn't you
of
say
people
so
to gather
earlier?
information,
You made me
but
worry
they had
for
not
nothing.
found him.
Yi Hao said
angrily.
The system,
After
learning
time,
that Qin
the
Xiong
artifact
was still
spirit
alive,
had already
found a
sigh
solution
of relief
and was still
as
trying
long
to
as
scare
Qin
him.
Xiong was not
However,
in mortal
when
danger,
he thought about
all was
subduing
well.
the heavenly
The bandits
spirit,
between the
Yi Hao
7
couldn't
cities
help
were
but
gone.
feel a little
Instead,
anticipation.
the population
in the
had
myriad
increased.
kingdom continent.
Most of them had
he could
fled
be
the
considered
chaos
the
of
first
war
person
and had
to
come
subdue
here.
the heavenly
After Yi Hao's
spirit.
propaganda,
Little dragon,
the population
quickly
had
give
nearly
me a
doubled.
drop of dragon's
As for
blood
taxes,
essence,
Yi Hao's
Yi
head
Hao
was
said
spinning.
to the dragon.
Luckily,
although the
Shen
dragon
Wansan
felt
had
a little
fully
heartache,
utilized his
it quickly
talent
spat
as a
out a
businessman.
drop of dragon's
Yi Hao
blood
directly
essence.
handed
Yi
over
Hao
the
was
finances
secretly glad
of the 7
that he
cities
didn't kill
to
the
Shen
dragon.
Wansan.
Otherwise,
the 7 cities
where would he
formed
find
a triangular
dragon's blood
formation,
essence?
surrounding
Even if there
and
was,
protecting
it would be
Yan
eaten
Huang
by
City.
him.
As
Dragon's
Yi Hao's
blood
base
essence
camp
was
Yan
extremely
Huang
precious,
City was even
the dragon's
easier to
blood
defend
essence
and
was
harder
the
to
essence
attack.
of the dragon.
Without an army
the dragon's
of
blood
100,000
essence was an item
they
of
could
extreme
forget
young.
about taking down.
It was a
Yan
natural
Huang
counter
City.
to the heavenly
This army
spirit
of 100,000
temporarily
would have to
subdue
pass through the
Not
10,000
good.
souls
It's
great
coming
design
out.
first.
Yi Hao
However,
saw the heavenly
there were still some who
flying
were blind,
towards him
over
and
the past
anxiously
month.
shouted to the
surrounding
artifact
powers
spirit.
had been
Be
eyeing Yi
careful.
Hao covetously.
While the heavenly
After a month of
spirit
planning,
isn't paying
the
attention,
combined army
put the
of
dragon's
100,000
soldiers
soldiers
from the 4
when the
Marquis
time
kingdoms
comes, I will suck
split
both
into
of you
4
into
groups.
my space.
They were heading
At that
towards
time,
Shao City,
you can use
Sparrow
the Heart
City,
of Array,
Tanji
whether
City,
or not you
and
succeed
Wind Cloud
will
City,
depend on
respectively.
yourself. They were
The
trying to
artifact
break through
spirit's
Yan
heart
Huang
was
City
also
in
in
one
its
go.
throat.
Looks
Whether
like
or
I've
not
been
it
quiet
would
for too
succeed,
long this
no
month.
one had used
Everyone
this
wants a
method
piece
before.
of the pie.
It was only recorded by
At
a
this
martial
moment
god
in the
history.
city lord residence
If it
of
was
Yan
fake,
Huang
Yi
City,
Hao would die
Yi
without
Hao
a
was
doubt.
listening to the
It's
reports
close.
from the soldiers
Closer.
sent by the 4 cities.
Yi Hao looked at the
This
heavenly
is a good
spirit
opportunity
flying
for me
towards
to
him.
test the power
He
of my
didn't dare
myriad
to
souls
relax in
array.
the slightest.
Yi Hao
and
rubbed
kept
his
reminding
chin,
himself
turned around
in
and
his
said
heart,
to his subordinates,
"Now's the time.
pass down my
Yi
orders."
Hao saw that the
All the
heavenly
city leaders
spirit
are to
was
immediately
less than
lead
10
their
centimeters
troops back
away
to
from
Yan
him.
Huang City.
A dark aura
Remember to
enveloped his
resettle
body,
the population,
causing him to be
properly.
unable to breathe.
We cannot lose
Yi
the
Hao
hearts of the
shouted
people.
and pressed the
He
dragon's
had
blood
50,000
essence on the
soldiers
heavenly
now.
Een spirit.
Although their
The
overall
heavenly
strength
Een
was
spirit's
not bad,
movements
they were
suddenly
too spread
stopped.
out, and it
If
just
there were
stood
too
there
many
in front
enemies,
of him, they would definitely be defeated one by one. Therefore,
Chapter
only by
120,
gathering the troops
when
together
the heavenly
could they
Een
stand
spirit
a
was
chance
frozen,
against the enemy.
The weapon spirit
Moreover,
immediately
these
sucked
soldiers
Yi
of his
Hao
had
and the
rested
heavenly
for a
Een
month.
spirit
It was
into the
time for
space.
them to see
At
some
the same
blood.
time,
Yi
the
Hao's
weapon
orders
spirit
were
shouted,
quickly passed down.
"Hurry up and
The
open
soldiers
the heart
of the
seven
formation
cities."
quickly
Yi Hao
gathered
didn't
at
dare
Yan
to be
Huang
careless
City.
and immediately
At this
opened
moment,
the heart
the
of
4
the
generals
formation.
in the Allied
Ding
army
Dong,
camp
heart
were
of
naturally
formation
overjoyed
activated
when they heard
Ding
that Yan
Dong
Huang
discovered
City was
heavenly
retreating.
Een spirit.
They also quickly
Do you want to
gathered their
absorb
troop.
it?
The
Haha,
system's
I've said that
notification
Yan Huang City
immediately
is
strong
sounded.
on the outside but weak
Ding
on the
Dong,
inside.
collecting 1%,
Recently, they have
collecting
made quite a
2%,
commotion.
collecting 4%.
In the end, when they
Why
saw
is
our
it so
army,
slow?
they were so
Can it be
scared
faster?
that they immediately
The
retreated
dragon's
to their
blood
old
essence
nest.
had a limited effect
The general
on
of
the
Hu
heavenly
country,
Een
Hu
spirit.
Lierong, sat
According
in the
to the
camp
system
and laughed
speed,
heartily.
It couldn't be
That's
in
right.
a hurry.
I've already
By then,
sent
he
people
would
to
be
find
dead.
out.
Sorry,
All the troops in Yan
this is
Huang
the
City
fastest
added up
speed at
are
the
only
moment.
a quarter
The
of our
system
army.
said coldly.
I believe that Yan
Giant
Huang
Dragon
City
is
is still in the
late.
dark and thinks
Hurry
that
up
we
and
only
give me
have
more
100,000
dragon's blood
soldiers. Yi Hao
Another skinny
realized
Jun
that the
Tianyu
frozen
said.
heavenly
This
Een
is
spirit
all
was
thanks
already
to Brother
reacting.
Tianyu's good plan.
He had only
should be
collected
thankful
30%
that they ran
of it
quickly
and could only
were able
continue
to live a
use
little
the
longer.
dragon's blood essence
Otherwise,
to
they would
overcome
have
the
been
heavenly
trampled
Een
on.
spirit as he
Yi
shouted
Rui's
at
hen
the
praised
giant
the
dragon.
middle-aged general
The giant
sitting
dragon
in the first
also
seat.
stared at
The
Yi
middle-aged
Hao and
general
the heavenly
was
Een
naturally
spirit
pleased.
in fear. The enemy
Its
had
eyes were
retreated
filled
without
with
a
worry
fight
and
in the
nervousness.
first battle. When it heard Yi
Naturally,
Hao's words,
the Allied
it
army's
immediately
morale
spat
was
out
greatly
another
boosted.
drop of dragon's
He was
blood
also
essence.
very proud.
At the same
This
time,
is the first
its aura
time that our
weakened
4
again.
countries are
Giant
fighting
dragon,
together.
Give me
This
your
battle
blood
will
essence.
definitely show
Don't
our
forget
glory.
that I'm the master
Let our
of
limelight
this space.
overshadow Yan
Otherwise,
Huang City.
This drop
and
of
let
dragon's
others know
blood
that
essence
Yan
would
Huang
definitely
City
not
is
be
just
enough.
a joke.
The giant
Everyone was in high hesitate, and it was as though they could already see the moment to the when Yen Huang City was taken. At this moment, the heavenly they have gathered their troops, struggling, it saves us the trouble. The weapon spirit immediately took out the materials from the space and formed an array. Tianyu was very confident. At the same time, it placed the dragon's that he had 100,000 soldiers. Little Ball, and Yen Huang City was already scared move witless. At all and could only Yen speak. Huang City knew he that his army was actually 200,000 at the weapon spirit. Who knew how they would feel. At this moment, At
a
this
simple
moment,
and mysterious
in the
array
Yan City
appeared in
residence,
Yi Hao's eyes.
all the generals
shot
had gathered
out a golden
and were
light
waiting
that
for Yi
enveloped
Hao's
the heavenly
arrival.
Yin spirit.
Everyone
The
is
heavenly
here.
Yin spirit was struggling
Yi Hao
even
walked
harder.
in from outside
Array
and
complete.
said to the generals
The
when
weapon
he saw
spirit
them.
was sweating
Seeing
profusely
Yi Hao's smiling
as its body
face,
became
they stood up and
abnormally
bowed.
weak.
Greetings,
At the same
my
time,
lord.
the array
Why do you all
instantly
look so
emitted a
miserable?
strong light
Tell
that
me about
enveloped
it.
the heavenly
Yi Hao
Yin
saw
spirit.
that everyone,
the heavenly
including
Yin
Dian Wei
spirit
and
was
Xiao Yun,
suppressed once again.
was frowning and
This
knew
time
that they were
it went
worried
very
about
smoothly.
the enemy.
He
Finally,
raised his
there was
teacup
no
and
danger.
asked.
Dian
The
Wei
heavenly
looked
Yin
at
spirit
everyone
could
and
only
stood
stand
up with
there
his fists
unwillingly,
clasped.
allowing Yi
My
Hao
lord,
to
the
absorb
enemy
it.
is attacking.
Ding dong,
Dian
thank
Wei
you for
pledges to
successfully
fight to the
absorbing.
death.
We
The
swear
heavenly
to
Yin
fight the
spirit
enemy
turned
with
into
our
a
black
lives.
pearl.
Please
and shot
grant our
into Yi
wish,
Hao's
my lord.
eyes.
Occupying
Everybody
the
stood
heart
up
of the
and
formation.
said after Dian
Phew,
Wei.
it's a success.
They were all angry
Yi
that
Hao
they had
heaved a
retreated
sigh of
without a
relief.
fight. The
Yi Hao
artifact
looked at
spirit
everyone's
and the giant
fearless
dragon
expressions
also
and
smiled
asked,
at each other.
Then what are your chances
System,
of defending
help me
the
check
city?
the heavenly
Yi Hao
Yin
retorted.
spirit. Seeing their troubled expressions,
Yi Hao
he said,
only felt the
Since
heavenly
you know
Yin
that
spirit
you will
enter
lose,
his body,
why defend
but
the
there
city?
wasn't any big
War
change,
requires brains,
and he didn't notice
Don't
any
fight to the death.
abnormalities in his
It's like
body.
hitting a rock
Heavenly
with an egg.
Yin spirit, divine
We know we
item.
were wrong.
Current level
All right,
status,
come with me.
weak.
I'll
It
take
could
you to
strengthen
watch a
darkness
great
type
show.
attacks.
Yi Hao
Strengthen
said
darkness
softly.
type formations.
A show?
And
Why
suppress
do we
darkness
still
type
need to
attack?
watch a show at
It
this
doesn't
time?
seem to be
Everyone
of any
looked at
use.
Yi Hao in confusion.
Yi Hao scratched
but
his
Yi
head.
Hao just
If
smiled
the people
and
from
said
the
nothing.
Blood Demon Church
They could
knew
only
that Yi
follow
Hao
Yi Hao
subdued
to
the
the
heavenly
city.
Yin
They
spirit
didn't
so
understand
easily.
what Yi
They
Hao
might
was
want to
going
skin
to do.
Yi Hao alive.
Shouldn't he be
The
setting up
heavenly Yin
defenses
spirit has
or
been
thinking of a way to
subdued
fight?
and is now in
Why
its
was he
weakest
going
state.
to the city wall?
But as long as it develops,
Take my horse.
it will become
Everyone,
abnormally
come with
strong.
me.
Yi
The
Hao got on the
artifact
purple
spirit saw
cry
the
of flying
dissatisfaction
horse,
on
followed
Yi
by
Hao's
Dian
face
Wei
and
and
weakly
the others.
explained.
To reach
Moreover,
Yanhuang City,
it has been
they had to
subdued
pass
by you
through 10
before it
mountains
even
of
developed
various
its own
sizes.
intelligence.
Yi Hao led the
Only
puzzled
if you
people
think
to
of a way
mountain.
to make it
The
develop its
stronghold
own
here had been
intelligence
wiped out
will
by
it
Yi
be
Hao.
able to display
They climbed
its
to
true
the
power.
top of the mountain unimpeded.
Moreover, the heavenly
At this
Yin
time,
spirit
they could
can
already
also
see
see
the
the
mighty
mighty
army
heavenly
approaching
Yin
quickly.
spirit. You have to know that its attack power
Chapter
is much
114.
stronger than the fierce
What?
beasts in the
Everyone's
10,000
expression
countries
changed
continent.
as they looked
The heavenly
carefully.
Yin beast
The more
is
they
completely
looked,
born
the more
to kill.
shocked they became.
It doesn't know
They
pain
thought that
and
only
only
knows how to
100,000
attack.
enemies were strong
Cultivators
enough,
and magical
but now
beasts
their
of the
numbers
same
were
level
doubled.
are
If
far
Yi Hao
from being
hadn't
a match
discovered
for the
it,
heavenly
they would
Yin
still
beast.
be in the dark.
Every time the
My
heavenly
lord,
Yin
why don't
beast
we
appears,
retreat?
it
We
would
can't
cause
lose
a bloody
all
storm
50,000
in the entire
soldiers
continent.
As
So
long
I'm
as we
reminding
have
you
time,
that
we
before
can
you
definitely
become
make a
completely
comeback.
strong.
Although
You can't
Yang
let others
Xiaodao
know
was
that you
usually
have the
careless.
heavenly Yin
He was a
spirit.
cautious person.
If others know,
Otherwise,
it will
Yi
definitely
Hao wouldn't
attract
have
the
entrusted
pursuit of
him with
experts
such an
because
important
the
task.
heavenly Yin spirit
There were many
is too
people in the
strong.
army who
It
were
is an
stronger than
existence
him.
that some
General
experts
Yang,
can't tolerate.
it's too late now.
Moreover,
The enemy
heavenly
has
Yin
blocked
spirit
the only
has
exit
always
of
been
Yanhuang
worshipped as a
City.
sacred object
Li
by the
Jin
evil
observed
demon
the enemy
cult.
and retorted,
Yi Hao
"It's
naturally
impossible
knew the
to
principle
break out.
of an innocent man
It's better
getting
than
into
waiting
trouble
for death.
possessing a
If we
jade
rush
ring.
out now,
It
we
was
might
just
catch
that
the
he
enemy
didn't
off
expect
guard.
that the heavenly
It's
Yin
okay if we
spirit
die,
would be
but
so
my
strong
lord can't
in the
die.
later stages.
Yang Xiaodao
That
said
person has
anxiously.
actually been
In his heart,
subdued.
Yi Hao was
In
more
the secret
important
chamber
than
of the
anything
holy
else.
blood demon
Yi Hao
cult.
smiled and
The
looked
blood
at
demon
Xiao Yun.
ancestor
Suddenly
Xiao Yun,
opened
what
his
do you
eyes
think?
and muttered.
Xiao Yun
But
didn't
this
answer
way,
in a
he
hurry.
will become very
Instead,
weak in the early
he thought
stages.
for a while,
That
looked
will
at
give
the
me
enemy,
the chance
and
to
then
devour
at the
him.
mountains below.
The blood demon
He clasped his
ancestor
fists
let
and
out a
said,
terrifying
"My
laugh.
lord,
I
men,
think we should set
what
up some
orders does
ambushes
the
on the road to
ancestor have?"
Yanhuang City.
A black figure
These mountains
appeared
are
and
easy
knelt
to
at the
defend
door of
and
the
hard
secret
to
chamber.
attack. They will definitely
asked with a
cause a
trembling
lot of
voice.
losses to the
Go
enemy.
and tell your cult master to
that's a
increase
good idea.
the manpower again.
My lord,
You
let
must
me lead
find
an
the
ambush,
owner of the
Dian
heavenly
Wei said
Yin
quickly.
spirit.
Generally
Mainly
investigate the
you
people
have to
who
protect
have
my lord.
outstanding
Let
performance
me do
in the
this.
dark side.
Xiao Yun,
After you catch
who was
them,
dressed in
quickly
white,
bring them
stopped stopped him with a smile. I would rather catch the wrong person than let them go. I've already told you that the heavenly Een spirit just had been stay subdued. Here obediently. It would be almost impossible to easily detect his aura. Everyone looked at Yi Hao's back in confusion. However, if could it be that the Lord had already made arrangements and used the dark side cultivation techniques or the martial vanguard of the enemy, they would definitely advance by leaps when they were about to ask Yi Hao to return could only to the start city. From this aspect. The enemy was suddenly in definitely chaos. Couldn't allow more than 20 cavalrymen rushed out of nowhere to become stronger, followed by more than 100 soldiers. He would be the only one to be devoured. They were all very strong, if not for the blood demon ancestor being heavily injured and unable to move, soldiers and his own strength being greatly reduced, as if there was no one around. He would have immediately gone out. They didn't care about their lives and didn't have any flags. Now that the heavenly charge in that direction subdued, Dian Wei and the others were rare opportunity
those
for him
cavalrymen
to devour
were
it.
at least in the
Before
martial
that heavenly
realm.
Een spirit
Also,
had developed
seeing
intelligence,
Yihao's confident
he
expression,
already felt
they
that
naturally
it was much
knew
stronger
that it had
than him.
something to do
However,
with Yihao.
the person
They
who
were
could
extremely
subdue the
shocked.
heavenly Een
Where
spirit
did their master
had to
find
fulfill
these
at
martial
least
king
two
cavalry?
conditions.
And
Thinking
they had
of
no
this,
idea
the
at
blood
all.
demon ancestor opened his blood-red eyes
Yihao
again.
glanced at the cavalrymen
Mainly,
who
go
were
and
surrounded
investigate
by the
which
army.
formation
Although
inscriber
he felt
has
a little
huge
heartache,
dragon.
he still said
The
expressionlessly.
black figure disappeared at the
He had
door
spent
of the
most
secret
of his
chamber.
resources to exchange
Yihao
for these
still didn't know
first-level
that he had
martial
been
king
targeted by a
cavalrymen.
martial sage expert.
After a
He
month
was
of
currently
plundering
organizing
resources,
people to
he
clean
had
up the
only
battlefield.
managed to summon
At this
100
moment,
martial
the
king
sky was
cavalrymen.
already bright.
Moreover,
The heavenly
if these
Een
20
knight had also
cavalrymen were to be
passed,
surrounded,
the soldiers and
they would
generals
be
of
in
Yan
grave
Huang
danger.
City didn't
Although
know
the
what
martial
had
king
happened.
realm was high,
The 10,000
they could not
spirits
fight
formation
against
had
so many
isolated
people.
all sound.
As for those
It was
100
only when
soldiers,
Yihao
their
opened the
strength was
10,000
also
spirits formation
extraordinary,
that everyone
every
was
single
shocked
one of
to
them
discover
had reached the
that
peak
Yihao
of the
had
martial
actually
general
wiped
realm.
out all
He had spent
100,000 enemy troops without
soul
them
points
knowing.
on them.
They didn't
However,
know about
after
the
that
heavenly
round of
Een knight.
attacks,
They
the
only
sole
thought
points
that it
in
was
Yihao's
because
mind
Yihao's
had
spirit
increased by
formation
over
was strong.
40,000 points.
200,000
Although the
troops
strength of these
besieging
soldiers
Yan
was
Huang
low,
City had
Yihao
ended
could get
in such
4
a
to 5
dramatic
soul
manner.
points on
The other
average
powers
by
still
killing one of
hadn't
them.
received
This
any
meant
news
that
of
the
this.
previous round of
Deal
attacks
with these
had killed
corpses
at least
again and
10,000
expand the
enemies.
mountain of corpses.
Yihao, who was
Let
on the
them
horse,
see that this
looked
is the
back and
consequence
found
of
that the
offending
battle
Yan
was not
Huang
over
City.
yet.
Yihao
He could
instructed his
imagine the
subordinates.
strength of these cavalrymen and soldiers.
Rest in peace.
I will
Chapter
cut off the heads of
121.
the enemy generals
The nearby
and
snobs
offer them
no
to
longer
you
dared
as a
to
sacrifice.
underestimate Yan Huang
Yihao was
City.
no longer indecisive
Yihao's name had
and
also
said
spread
coldly
to the
in his
nearby
heart.
snobs.
Reporting
The
to the 4
annihilation
generals,
of 200,000
our vanguard
troops
has
from
been
the 4
attacked
Marquiat
fiercely
states
by the enemy.
had also become
The
the
4
biggest
generals
joke.
listened to
However,
the report
the
of their
4 Marquiat
subordinates.
states
The
could
4
only swallow
generals
their
did not
pride
seem
for
to
now.
care.
After
How
losing
many
so
people
many
have
troops,
come?
their strength
Only a
had
little
decreased
more than
greatly.
100.
How would
The
they dare to
subordinate
continue
reported
attacking
truthfully.
Yan Huang
This
City?
made the 4 generals
Instead,
hold
they
their
had to
stomachs
prevent
and laugh
other
even
countries
harder.
from taking
The
advantage
surrounding
of them.
soldiers laughed
This also
so hard
prompted
that
the
they
4
even
Marquiat
dropped their
states
weapons
to
to
join
the ground.
forces to resist
I say,
external
did the
enemies.
people of Yan
And the
Huang
status
City
of
give
Yan
up?
Huang City
What can
was no
100
weaker
people
than that
do?
of the 4
You're
Marquiat
telling me
states.
that they've been
Currently,
attacked fiercely.
none of the snobs
Yuru
dared to
10
start
laughed
another
so
war.
hard that he almost
Instead,
fainted.
they shook their
When the
heads and
subordinates
watched.
saw everyone
However,
laughing,
everyone could
he said
see that the
softly with a
current
bad
peace
expression,
was only temporary.
the weakest of these
The
people
4
is a
Marquiat
peaked
states
martial
would not
general.
be so willing
There
to
are also
suffer in
more than
silence.
20 martial king
Your Highness,
experts.
can you bring
The
me
smiles
back with
on
you?
everyone's
I want to
faces
take care of
instantly
you.
froze.
Jiu
It was
Hongling's
even
small
uglier
eyes
than
were
a
red as she looked at
asterisk,
Yihao.
asterisk,
Her slender,
asterisk.
white
100
fingers were
peaked
constantly
martial
playing
general
with the
and
corner
20
of her
martial
clothes.
kings.
Sisterling,
This made them
I will
unable
be
to
back
laugh
soon.
no matter how
Besides,
hard they tried.
I still need your
It was
help
not
with the
that
matters
the 4
of Yan
allied
Huang
armies
City.
could not produce
Yihao did
peak
not
martial
intend
general.
to bring Jiu
However,
Hongling back.
they were their own
After all,
personal
it
bodyguards,
was too dangerous
who
to
would
bring
be
her
so
along.
wasteful as
Besides,
to use them
Yan
as
Huang
cannon
City
fodder.
was full of
Probably
men.
only
A woman
Yihao
had
would
to
do
take
something
care of
like
it.
that.
Jiu
As for the
Hongling
20
was more
martial
meticulous.
kings, they felt
Naturally,
a chill
it
run
would
down
be
their
best
backs
to leave it to
and
her.
broke out in cold
Yihao
sweat.
upgraded the
They
10,000
secretly
spirits
rejoiced that there
design
were
once
troops
again.
in front of them.
However, this
if the
time
20 martial
only the
kings
range had
attacked
widened.
together,
The
their
attack
heads
could
would
still
have been
deal with a
separated
Tier
from their
2
bodies.
Emperor Wu.
Even
However,
the 4
it
allied
could deal
armies
with
could not produce
200,000
20
troops
martial
at the
kings.
same time.
The 4 generals
One could say
of the 4
that Yan
Marquiat
Huang
City
City
were
was
only at the
absolutely
peak
safe.
of Wu Ho.
As for the
Only
remaining
Jun
40
Tianyu
martial
had
king
reached the
cavalrymen,
first level of
Yihao
martial
took 10
king.
of them with him.
Therefore,
as
the
for the
remaining
generals,
3 followed
they were
his
all
lead.
left behind
What's
in
the
Yan
situation
Huang City.
now? The remaining 7
Shi
cities
Hongmao
had
asked
also
with
been
a
taken
malevolent
over by
expression.
Yihao's men.
The 20 martial
Each
kings
city was
made
guarded
him
by
tremble in
3
fear.
martial king
The great
cavalrymen.
generals all
At the
turned
same
to
time,
look at that
under
subordinate.
Yihao's orders,
Even the
they were
arrogant
recruiting
Jun
troops
Tianyu had a
at full
grave
speed.
expression on his
Under
face
the allure
at
of
this
rich
moment.
rewards and
Our
the
army has
temptation of
lost
cultivation
13,000
techniques.
men.
Many
More than
refugees
6,000
flocked to Yan
are
Huang.
seriously injured.
Besides, the reputation of Yan Huang City had spread for thousands of miles and attracted many refugees.
How are the
After
enemy's
all,
casualties?
everyone wanted a strong
Although
backing.
the 4 of them were heartbroken
That's a little
about their
awkward.
own casualties,
Yi Hao
they
sat
were
on the
more
dragon
concerned
and
about
looked
the
at the
20
vast
martial
forest
kings.
below.
If the 20
He
martial
held the
kings
map
did
that
not
Zhou
die,
Hongling
they
had
would
drawn
feel
for
like
him.
a sharp sword
In the
was
beginning,
hanging over their
Yi Hao
heads.
had a rough idea
The enemy's
of where
generals
he was,
and soldiers
but now
were all
he had
killed.
no idea where
14
he was.
martial kings
He had
were
to
killed.
admit that he was
Only
lost.
6 escaped
If
with
I had
serious
known
injuries.
earlier, I would have brought
Trash,
Sister
a
Ling
bunch
along.
of trash. Yi Hao was annoyed.
You can't even kill 4 seriously injured people.
I think I heard someone calling for help. Into a rage. Yi Hao suddenly vaguely heard a voice shouting for help. He drew his sword and cut the subordinate put me on the ground. Reporting in half. The giant dragon quickly landed and placed Yi Hao on the ground. The remaining 3 did not care about the deaths of their subordinates, and Song Jiji naturally could not see Yi Hao's wiped his sword clean. Young master, sheathed it back into its scabbard. A servant carefully cannot be left alive. Let's go. Since we have already come this far, there is no chance for regret. We definitely cannot let that brat snatch her away. We can only destroy Yan Huang City in one go, Song Jiji's no matter the price. Was filled with the aura otherwise, of we will be the ones to be destroyed. Ever since the Yi country had split, the crown prince martial kings onto a powerful thigh. Didn't we kill so many of them? Had also skyrocketed. The rest escaped with serious injuries. The crown prince had also bestowed him with a pile of killing intent. Song Jiji's strength I don't believe that they can keep sending out now, martial an unknown kings. Brat do they really think that martial kings he would are definitely teach this pass brat down my orders. This regardless of the consequences is not bad. Push the army two into hidden martial emperors city. Looked at Yi no matter how many martial kings at the same time they will be their killed. Attention was also on Song Jiji. There are some little things over there. Under they Jun have bad intentions. Orders. There is no need to kill them at full speed. As long as nothing happens to the little princess, the soldiers were much more cautious. Need for us to they do observed anything. Their surroundings. If someone has bad intentions, afraid that we will just destroy their country from some corner. The other martial emperor however, said softly. When the army successfully it was as if destroying a country mountain, was as easy they did not as crushing a single shadow. The first princess made everyone heave to stay here and look for that evil passing through the third mountain. However, they still did so long and there is no news at all. At this moment, we should go back. The soldiers of the Allied army heaved a sigh of relief. You don't want to live anymore. I knew it. If Imperial Anne could not possibly she have will so many martial your 9 generations. Just as I expected. What are you afraid of? A child the heavens are high and the Emperor with is so many away. Martial kings who can control us. Did not treat them as his trump card. I heard that the first princess and the little princess were picked up by Imperial said mockingly. Imperial Anne has the intention of betrothing the 2 princesses for their own safety. However, the divine emperor already always in the middle of the army. This time, in order to sent us to look for this Yi Hao. They could only exchange the lives of their soldiers for the lives of their martial kings. The thin martial emperor said mysteriously, just as the evil brat wants to be worthy of the 2 princesses. The deafening sounds of killing that the 2 princesses have peerless physique. However, in the future, this time they will inherit from 2 divine bloodline. Damn it! Why can the enemy run to the back? Be worthy of them. Who you are own cursed. General Yuerong, don't be angry. Even if he brings martial kings, how many can he bring out? The purple-clothed girl opened her eyes and was surprised to see they can only delay our advance. However, don't worry. She quickly reacted Jun Tianyu was very calm. Yi Hao smiled and reached out surrounded by so many soldiers. Why are you here alone? Incomparably safe. Did you get separated from your family? This was just the final with struggle of glance, Yi Hao could tell that martial this girl wasn't an ordinary girl. Yan Huang City could not possibly bring out but so many martial kings. Anything. Moreover, it seemed no matter how strong the martial kings were, or perhaps his level wasn't high enough to see her in front of this army. The purple-clothed girl hesitated for a moment. Yan Huang reached out her dirty little 20 martial kings at most. Yi Hao pulled her up. We only need to rest here for a while, smooth, and we will definitely take the softness in his hand. Where did the master find so many martial king experts? As he muttered softly. Xiao Yun looked at the battle at the foot of the mountain. The girl raised her head and asked curiously. He realized that he could never see through his master, Yi Hao said clearly, who was younger than him, nothing, and had endless tricks up his sleeves. However, after a quick count, he forgot to let go of the girl's hand. There were 30 martial kings. The girl then realized that her hand was as if the martial king knights had entered. She immediately knew what Yi Hao was talking about. They charged forward, feeling the warmth in her palm, leaving behind a ground full of corpses. This was the first time she had held a man's defensive line she was young and charged back even her father had never held her hand before where there were the most people. They were like the grim girl saw Yi Hao holding her little hand with a clear conscience. At this moment, the soldiers were even more helpless. What's wrong? They could only use their lives to fill the gap created by the purple-clothed girl. These generals are really ruthless. Stamped her little feet with a shy look. Yi Hao looked at the banners of the 4 generals. I didn't do it hiding under the heavy encirclement. Yi Hao suddenly realized and looked embarrassed. Since you want to use the lives of the soldiers to make up for your lack of cultivation, twice I will fulfill your wish. It would be strange if a loud and clear slogan into the air. Purple-clothed girl 2 more rows of Marshal King knights charged out from behind the enemy troop. ZMO there were 10 of them politely in total. To ease the awkwardness. They charged into the enemy troops without killed my ghost defense. Crocodile? Another 10 apologized to me quickly. Xiao Yun's eyes were filled with shock. Don't even think about leaving adding here the today. Marshal Kings from before Yi Hao could finish his more than 60 Song of them. Gigi other than the Marshal Kings with a group of underlings, which Marquis would be able to take out such a large sum of money. Arrogantly. Other Marquis would treat a Marshal King as a treasure. His strength seems to have increased a lot. Did something happen in Yi? A Marshal King Yi Hao was suddenly interrupted. As long as he was very unhappy King as cannon fodder, when he saw Song Gigi, who would be so wasteful, but frown. At this moment, Song Gigi, the 4 generals, had also heard Prime Minister whistle, and also they anxiously called for the soldiers to ask Yi Hao. It was Song Gigi. What was that sound just now? Yi Hao. And why do I feel that the battle this time is even more intense than before? Did you kill my ghost crocodile? At this moment, and the soldiers were sweating profusely. Song Gigi looked down at the scene of the soldier being cut in half. Since he couldn't be a hero and save the damsel in distress, the 4 generals were he would use his usual methods. It was not a solution if he did not speak. Hey, he could only grit his teeth and say, "Show him what you're made of." This time, we are being attacked by 30 Marshal Kings. Expect Yi Hao to be so tough. The sound just now was his expression changed. The enemy has added another 10 Marshal Kings in front of a beauty. Damn it. He felt like he was slapped in the face by Yi Hao. He pulled out his weapon again and cut the soldier in half. Gigi's call. The other 3 also looked at him immediately, took up their weapons and pounced on Yi Hao. Face was so dark that it was about to drip water. Yi Hao was wearing the blood scar armor. Slapping his face? It was a level 4 spiritual artifact. Yan Huang City had at most 20 Marshal Kings. Were only level 1 Marshal generals. A total of 40 Marshal Kings. Even if Yi Hao took off his armor, don't worry. These underlings would not be able to cause any damage to Yi Hao with his 30 times Jun Tianyu looked at the doubtful and regretful expressions of the 3 generals. Song Gigi thought that Yi Hao was dead. In his opinion, Yan Huang City had sent out 60 Marshal Kings. With a lustful expression. This should be the limit. Little girl, play with me. City's final I'll let you eat and drink well as long as you serve me well. They could only command the soldiers to kill the Marshal King Knight. Why are you calling me? There was no reason to retreat. When Song Gigi heard his underlings calling if they were to retreat in defeat after seeing he did not mind at all. Their emperor had killed many people not let them off. He was very confident in his underlings. They could only grit their teeth. They were all nurtured with treasures given by the first prince. A loud whistle was heard in the entire country of 4 generals and the hundreds of thousands of soldiers. They were his father's personal bodyguards when they heard it. They were sent this was because they knew what was going to happen next. Yi Hao still did not know that the country of Yi had been divided out from the left rear and joined the battle. They were the 5th prince. This must have been already proclaimed himself as the emperor. Jun Tianyu was just that he had not been recognized 3 great generals. However, there was a mysterious force behind him that was helping him. Speaking, the other forces did not dare to underestimate him, causing the hearts of the 4 generals to tremble. The first prince had proclaimed himself as what is the background of Yan Huang City? He had allied himself with the Zhao country, 80 Marshal King Knights have already appeared in Yan Huang City. Was supporting him. Why am I so weak? The second prince had proclaimed himself. I don't know why I'm so weak. Hearing the cries of their soldiers, he had a king's force behind him. The 4 generals felt their hearts turn cold. The 3rd prince did not ask for anything now as the Western Prince. They only asked that the 4th prince had proclaimed himself and they would be as the Eastern Prince. Every time the voice pledged their allegiance to the Marquis would appear. The 5 forces were fighting against each other. Don't tell them that Yan Huang City was poor and only had Marshal Kings left. ZMO opened her small mouth with a look of surprise. Xiao Yun and the others could no longer describe their feelings. He said his name is Yi. They looked at Yi Hao's son, who was playing happily at the side, but it seems impossible, and said at the same time, the defensive spiritual weapon on him why Yi Hao was not worried at all. With so many Marshal Kings, the nation of God, anyone could sit back and relax. Had a good eye. Just as Yi Hao was about to whistle, she had some hope that the person in front of her was Yi Hao. Master, this way, stop she could complete her mission. Can you let me try to? She felt that it was impossible. Yi Hao looked at the expectant Yang for more than half a year. It wasn't impossible for him to appear here. What was there to try? Moreover, his appearance and height did not understand Yang Xiaodao's little girl, don't be whistling afraid. Once and it's 10 just Marshal a piece Kings of trash. Appear. I'll get my underlings to get rid of him with Yi Hao's approval. Yang Xiaodao immediately whistled happily. Saw ZMO, he was not disappointed. Little mouth open. 10 Marshal King Knights secretly suddenly appeared from the right front. He thought that ZMO really was afraid after seeing Yi Hao being hacked to death. Chapter 116. He comforted her and reached out his demonic hand. What made people fearful was none other than the sound of the whistle. Once the whistle sounded, he was even more delighted. Who could stand that? ZMO, I don't believe that there are still martial kings in Yen. He had never played with such a beautiful girl before. Jun Tianyu was infuriated. ZMO, he whistled into the air. Were torn in some places. If you have the ability, send 10 more martial kings. Moreover, her small face was dirty and her beautiful black hair 10 was martial king experts have this aroused Song Jiji's desire. At this moment, the three great generals were dumbfounded. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath of Jun strangely. Wonderful fragrance. Whose side was this guy on? You don't want to live anymore. Was his brain damaged? Do you believe that I won't kill you? Who was the one who blew it like a fart that his wrist was suddenly grabbed? Yang Xiaodao stood rooted to the ground his eyes and scolded angrily. He looked at the others and realized that they were all looking at Yi Hao in the young man standing in front of him. Why are you all looking at me? Yi Hao's hair stood on end as he was stared at by his subordinates. Lying on the ground. He kicked a few of them in the buttocks, but none of them dodged. Yi Hao squeezed Song Jiji's wrist. That general leading the charge isn't one of your men. Song Jiji's face Xiao Yun swallowed his saliva and looked at Yi Hao suspiciously. He could still endure it. If the enemy general wasn't one of Yi Hao's men, was there something wrong with his head? Out loudly, blowing a whistle to attract martial kings to kill his subordinates. Otherwise, you better think about the consequences. Don't tell me that it was the enemy general blowing his whistle. Wrist was almost broken. Yang Xiaodao was a little slow to react. His face was still full of arrogance. His mouth was wide open in disbelief. What if I don't let go? As though he did not expect Song Jiji to be so unyielding. Can I say that I don't know anything? To tease him. Yi Hao saw that his subordinates were looking at him with admiration. My father he didn't know what was going on and you better think what was wrong with Jun Tianyu. You are now in Yi country. If not for the fact that he knew that he had nothing to do with Jun Tianyu, Yi Hao himself would have suspected that Jun Tianyu was one of his men. Are you afraid? If you're afraid, subordinates curled their lips and apologized to me, thinking that after that was lying. Break your own arms. If I'm satisfied, the troops I'll spare your enemy at the rear. Seeing Yi Hao eliminate the enemy quickly, Song Jiji thought that Yi Hao was frightened today. Jun Tianyu didn't know how to explain himself, and said angrily, so he could only in his entire life. He had only suffered 2 losses. Dissatisfied the first time was when he suffered at the hands of Yi Hao, so he quickly prepared to counterattack. He didn't know if Yi Hao was no longer whistling. Otherwise, he would definitely teach him any martial kings left. At that time, so he reminded Yi Hao, and he had no choice but to lower his begun their counterattack. But now it was different. However, to be able to bring out 100 martial kings. This reckless brat still actually dared to provoke him. At the very least, no matter what, it was something that he did not dare to imagine. Seems like you don't want to live anymore. Thousands of soldiers. Yi Hao was extremely irritated of the generals. The sudden appearance to encircle the martial king to lose his composure. Martial king cavalrymen were constantly being pulled off their horses, suppressing the killing intent in the martial king cavalrymen. He placed the blood-stained dual blades on Song Jiji's neck. If this continued, the martial king cavalryman would definitely be completely annihilated. Don't be rash. No matter how strong a martial king turned pale, as he felt the burning sensation on his neck. Before the enemy realized what was going on, Yi Hao asked his life would be blow a long whistle. Speak. As an expert of martial arts, you're talking about the eldest prince carried the power of martial arts. Yi Hao's face was filled with killing intent. The enemy's newly organized formation was disrupted again, as he carefully surveyed they thought that a more powerful attack was coming. He had never met this young man before. When the cavalrymen heard the traces of bewilderment, they knew that it was an order to retreat. Yes, they immediately turned their horses around and retreated before the enemy could react. Could it be that you are acquainted with him? Stop them. They are trying to escape. Yi Hao coldly we can't let them escape. However, Jun Tianyu reacted the fastest to reveal his identity. Ordered loudly. He wanted to know what exactly soldiers reacted quickly. Who could immediately kept his weapon and shook his head if he wanted to escape. I'm not acquainted with him. Dozens of martial king cavalrymen fled, and have heard of leaving the enemy's soldiers in the dust since I was young. No one dared to chase after them. I went out to study battle had yet to officially begin, just recently but returned. Close to half of the 200,000 strong army had already been lost. Song Jiji also believed generals did not look hearing that Yi Hao didn't know Prince Nan. They had led an army of 200,000. If Yi Hao really knew Prince Nan, to attack Yen, he would have suffered for nothing. In the end, since half of their army had been really wiped out, misunderstanding. How could they accept apologize to you, Brother Tianyu? Song Jiji got up, covered his wrist, and bowed apologetically to Yi Hao. This was definitely the most humiliating battle he had ever fought in his life. You will
he would
suffer
definitely
when you
be punished
to the city.
when he returned.
The moment he
Brother
bowed,
Tianyu,
a cold
are we
smile
still going to
flashed
attack?
across Song Jiji's
Let's
face.
retreat to Sparrow
There's
City
no
first,
need.
then discuss.
Zmo
Jun
face was
Tianyu
cold.
glanced around
She would
and
not
saw
bother
that the
with
soldiers
such a
were
playboy.
dejectedly cleaning
Let's
up
go.
the battlefield.
Zmo
He knew that it
Yihao's
wasn't a
shoulder
good time
and was
to
about
attack
to leave
Yanhuang City.
What?
Otherwise,
Yihao's
they would
was
definitely
puzzled.
lose.
Why did
Moreover,
Zmo
even if they
who was
took
very
down
embarrassed
Yanhuang
when
City,
he held her hand,
they wouldn't have
suddenly
many people
take the
left.
initiative? Retreat
Don't.
to Sparrow City.
Come with me to
The
South
three generals
City.
shouted.
I have
They
offended
had already
you so
come
much.
this far.
Were they going to lose everything just like that?
Give me a chance to
They
apologize.
weren't willing to accept
Song
this.
Jiji hurriedly
Why?
smiled.
Why don't
and tried
you lead
to
the
persuade
troops
them
and
to
attack
stay.
now?
He couldn't
Jun
just
Tianyu
let the
raised
two of
his
them
eyebrows
go.
and looked
There
at
was
the
no
three
other
of them
way
with
here.
dissatisfaction.
He could only delay
the
the
two
two
of
them
them
looked
looked
at each other.
When they
No one
arrived
dared
at
to
South
speak
King City
and led the troops
he could
in
do
pursuit.
whatever he wanted.
Unless they were crazy,
if Song
at
Jiji
least
didn't
30
say so,
to 40 martial
Yihao
kings
would have
had
asked him to
escaped
do
just
so.
now.
As for
Who
Song
knew if there
Jiji's
were more
thoughts,
martial kings
how could he
along
not
the way?
know? If
He
there was
asked
another
half-jokingly.
ambush, no one
Don't tell
dared
me
to be
you
the
want to
first
trick
to
me
attack.
into coming to South King
Let's
City
retreat
and
to
then
Sparrow
deal with
City
me
first.
Cough.
I will decide.
How could that be?
Seeing that the
I'm
three of them had
sincerely
nothing to
apologizing.
say,
Song
Jun
Jiji
Tianyu
turned
was a
his
little
horse
embarrassed
around
by
and retreated
Yihao's
to
words.
Sparrow City.
The
He
three
squeezed
generals
out a
had
very
no other
awkward
choice
smile
but
and
to
said,
follow.
I'm
My
joking.
lord, the
You
enemy
don't look
seems
like
to
a
have
despicable
retreated.
person.
Hua Rong
Only a
noticed
narrow-minded
that the enemy's
person
flag
can
was
do
actually
such a
moving
despicable
towards
thing.
Sparrow City.
Yihao
reported,
patted Song Jiji's
"Let's go back
shoulder with
and
a
have a
smile.
celebratory
He
feast."
didn't know whether it was
Yihao had
intentional
just finished
or
speaking
unintentional,
when Xiao Yun
but he just
immediately
happened
stopped
to
him.
pat Song Jiji's
"My lord, be
injured
careful
arm.
of the enemy's
That's
tricks."
right, that's right. Song
Don't
Jiji
worry.
grimaced in
The
pain
remaining
as he
defeated
sucked in a
soldiers
breath
won't
of
be
cold
able
air.
to escape.
He wished he could
Yihao
kill
said
Yihao right
confidently.
now.
There
But he
were
still
only
had to
about
put on a smile
100,000
and trick
soldiers
Yihao
left.
back to South
Just
King
the
City.
10,000 souls
If I don't make
formation
you beg
alone
for
was
death,
enough to make
then
them
I'm not
suffer.
Song Jiji.
If his guess was
If
right,
you want to go,
the enemy
you can
would
go.
definitely launch
I'm not
a
going.
sneak attack on
Zmo
Yanhuang
or
City.
looked at Song Jiji,
Therefore, on the
who
way
seemed
back
to be
to
up to no
Yanhuang
good.
City,
She
Yihao
thought that
secretly
Yihao was
opened the
stupid to
10,000
talk so
souls
happily with
formation
him.
while
She
no one was
pretended to
paying
be
attention.
angry and said,
From the outside,
"Brother, let's
the
go."
10,000 souls
Yihao
formation
glanced at
couldn't be
Zmo,
seen at
who
all.
was sulking at the
However,
side.
if one stepped
He
into
shook
the
his head with a
formation,
smile
one would
and ignored
definitely
her.
die.
Hey,
Let
you
all
big
the
bad
soldiers
guy,
rest.
you're really willing to
Returning
leave me
to
here
Sparrow
alone.
City,
Jun
Tianyu
Tianyu
didn't
immediately
expect
ordered.
Yihao to leave
Brother
just
Tianyu,
like that.
we have lost
Her cheeks
close
were
to
puffed up,
60,000
and she put her
soldiers in
hands
this
on her
battle.
waist and
There are
shouted
fewer
loudly.
injured, about
Seeing
10,000.
that Yihao was still
The
ignoring
martial
her,
king
she
soldiers were
stomped her
basically
feet
killed
angrily
in
and
one hit.
immediately chased
The injured
after him.
soldiers were
What are you
basically
doing?
trampled to death
Why
by
aren't you going
themselves.
home? Why
Irui's
are you
hen
following
reported
me?
after
Yihao
calculating
looked
the
at
number of
Zmo,
casualties,
who was hanging on
everyone
his shoulder
right
like
now,
a burden.
most of them
and
are
asked
eyeing us
speechlessly,
covetously.
"It's
waiting
none of
to
your
see
business.
us make a fool of
Zmo
ourselves.
was
I
obviously
believe that
still
there are
angry.
still many people
She looked
eyeing
like she
the
didn't
position
want to
of
talk to
general.
Yihao. Seeing the three of them
Song
nod in
Jiji
unison,
led a group
Jun
of
Tianyu
servants
continued
and walked in front of each
Therefore,
other,
we have to take
supporting
down
each other.
Yanhuang City.
Yihao and Zmo
Even if we
walked
have to
behind.
die together,
We have
Ziming's
no
flying
way out.
horse also
At this
followed
moment,
behind Yihao. Yanhuang City shouldn't be having
What's
a good
wrong
time
now?
either.
I'm
I
tired
believe that
from
they have
walking.
used up all
Let's
their
ride
trump
a
cards.
horse.
Otherwise,
I don't know
they
how
wouldn't
to.
have retreated
Yihao
at the
couldn't
critical
stand
moment.
this weird little girl and could only carry her onto the horse.
Chapter
Hey, what's
117. It's
Brother
quite comfortable
Tianyu
to
is
sit
right.
on.
I want to
believe
get
that
one for my
Yanhuang is
Xiaohong
not
too.
having a good time
Zmo
either.
or pointed
The main
at the
reason
saddle
is
under
that
her
we were
butt
caught
and
off
asked
guard.
in puzzlement.
We did not
I
expect
thought you didn't know
Yanhuang
how to
City
ride a
to have
horse?
so many martial
Yihao
kings.
sat behind
That
and
was
hugged
why we were
Zmo
caught off
Er's
guard.
waist.
The
The
strange
three
great
fragrance
generals
on
agreed
Zmo
with Jun
Er's
Tianyu's
body
words.
made him a little
Seeing that
restless.
his words were
Who
effective,
said that
Jun
Xiaohong is
Tianyu
a
continued.
horse?
Tonight is the best opportunity.
Although he was
we
young,
will attack
his
Yanhuang
physical
City
development
at all
was
costs.
comparable to a 14
Jun
or
Tianyu punched the
15-year-old
table
boy,
to vent the
and
anger
his
in
mind
his
was
heart.
clear.
Instantly,
Moreover,
the black
Zmo
wooden
was
table
moving
shattered
back and
into
forth
pieces
in his arms.
Although it was a
Don't
celebratory
move.
banquet,
Yihao
the
gently
food
hit
was
the
only
back of
slightly
Zmo
better.
Er's head.
Yihao had a
feeling that there would be a battle tonight. The enemy would definitely not let go of this opportunity. So she didn't care that Yi Hao the soldiers to rest early. She praised him. Master, should we do something about this? Will launch a Men and women shouldn't touch each other. The little princess has a noble status. At this moment, how can this country boy touch her? Had been raised by martial emperor said angrily when he saw this scene. After cultivating the black cloud art unruly and willful, he had broken through to the third tier of Wu Ho. If you're not afraid of disturbing how important talent she'll teach you a lesson. It had only been a few days. He had already broken through to the third tier.
Thin martial emperor
all the rewards for cultivating the black cloud art
swallowed his saliva
greatly,
and said,
however,
forget it.
He had not.
Just pretend
no matter
that
how
I
he
didn't
cultivated
see anything.
He did not
After
feel
walking
anything
for half a day.
In the end,
they finally
the system
arrived
told
at
him
South
that he
King
had
City.
to complete the
He
heart
took
of
a
the
closer
strong
look
mission
and found
before
that
he
there
could
were
cultivate
indeed many king's flags
returning to the
hanging on
country
city
of Yi
walls.
could not
The
be
entire
delayed.
city was
Besides,
expanding.
Yi Hao was very
This means
concerned
that
about
it's going to
Yi
catch
Batian.
up with the capital
After such a
of Yi.
long time, he still did not know how his father was doing. Deep into the night,
Chapter 124.
The roars of wild beasts
Stop,
could be heard
who are
from
you?
the mountains.
Open
The
your
bright
dog
moon
eyes
in the
and
sky
see
was
who I
blocked
am.
by thick,
Gigi
dark
scolded.
clouds at this moment.
The leader of the city
at this
defense
moment, the knight
immediately
was pitch
smiled
black.
apologetically
However,
and said,
the four great
so
generals
its young
led their
master
subordinates.
Why
and
are
threw
you
away
back so
all their
early
burdens.
this time?
They marched
The
towards
leader of
Yan
the city
Huang City
defense
at
was
lightning
puzzled.
speed.
Right now,
in order to
Song
prevent
Gigi's
alerting
father
the
was
enemy,
Prince Nan's
everyone
favorite
was
person,
actually
and
advancing
Song
on
Gigi
foot.
was his only
When they
son.
reached Little Fish
Naturally,
Mountain,
Song
they could
Gigi's
already see
status
the
in
shadow
Prince
of Yan
Nan's
Huang
was
City
second
from afar.
only to the Prince
It was
Nan.
very blurry.
How could these
However,
small soldiers
the senses
dare
of
to
a
provoke
martial
him?
king were
Moreover,
very strong.
Song Gigi
Jun
always
Tianyu
went out
realized
for 10
that the
days to half
defenses
a
of
month,
Yan Huang
but
City
he came
were
back
very
in
loose
less than 2
and
days.
was delighted.
Young
Our
Master
chances
Song,
here.
Who are
We
this
will
young
definitely
master
take
and
down
young
Yan
lady?
Huang City
The leader
in
of
one
the city
go.
defense looked
Jun
at Yi Hao.
Tianyu suppressed
Song
the ecstasy
Gigi
in
walked,
his heart,
but
and
Yi Hao
whispered,
rode a horse.
"Look, what
and
is
it was
that?
obvious that it was
Hu
a
Yuerong
spiritual
pointed
cult.
at the mountain of
Their
corpses
status was
and
naturally
asked,
different.
The mountain
so
of
he asked
corpses
carefully,
had undergone
"Don't
special
talk
treatment.
nonsense." So it was
Arrest
a pile
them
of
for me.
tens of thousands
Song
of skeletons
Gigi changed
piled
his
up
usual
into a
demeanor
mountain.
at this time.
Looking at
and
it
looked
in
at
the
Yi
middle
Hao
of the
and
night,
ZMO
it was
or
a vast
mockingly.
expanse of
Boy,
white,
you've come to
looking
my
very
territory
terrifying.
today.
People
So
are
don't
saying
think
that
about
Yi
leaving
Hao
here
is
alive.
crazy enough to
And you
create
little
a
girl,
mountain of
serve
corpses.
me well tonight,
I didn't
or I'll
expect
sell
it
you
to
to
be
a
true.
brothel.
Arrest them followed the
gaze and
when the
said
leader
in
of the
shock,
city defense heard Song Gigi's
no matter
order,
what,
they
hundreds
were
of
experienced
soldiers
generals.
rushed out of the city.
However,
and
they had
immediately
only heard of
surrounded Yi
corpses,
Hao.
and this
Boy,
was the first
quickly
time
get off
they had
the
seen
horse
one.
and surrender.
Especially
Be
in
careful
the middle of
not
the night
to suffer physical
the sight
pain.
of it sent chills
The leader
down
of
their
the city
spine.
guards shouted
no wonder
at Yi
people
Hao
said
with a
that
pitiful
corpses
look on
had
his
the
face.
effect of
How
intimidating
could he not
the enemy?
know about Song
The generals
Gigi's
didn't
character?
feel anything.
Either Song Gigi
After
was
all,
greedy
the
for
mountain
money
of corpses
or Song
was
Gigi
just a
was
pile
greedy
of
for
skeletons.
The leader
However,
of the city
some of
guards
the
had
soldiers'
helped him a
legs
lot
were already
with these kinds of
trembling
things.
uncontrollably.
He had no choice
They didn't
but to
dare
do it.
to look at the
Who
mountain of
asked him
corpses
to have
in
a
front
good
of them,
father?
afraid
If he
that
did
the
not catch
skeletons
Yi Hao,
would suddenly come
he would
back
be
to
the
life.
one who was
Why
unlucky.
do I feel like something
Attack.
isn't right?
Song Gigi
Why
shouted.
is it so eerie?
Hundreds of soldiers
Jun Tianyu
instantly
suddenly
waved their
stopped
weapons
and asked,
and slashed
I
at
have
Yi
the
Hao.
same feeling too.
Don't hurt that
I
little
feel like
girl.
Yan Huang
Song
City
Gigi
is right in
did
front
not
of
forget
me.
to remind
But
them
after
with a
walking
proud
for
expression,
so long,
you
why
want to
haven't
fight
we
with
arrived
me?
yet?
Song Gigi,
Rui's
why are
hen
you
also
back?
stopped.
What's going
When he
on
turned
here?
back,
Greetings,
his heart
Your
was in
Highness.
his throat. A
Corpse,
group of horses
Corpse
came out of the
Mountain.
city.
What's
the leader
wrong
was
with the
one of
Corpse
Yi Hao's
Mountain?
brothers,
Hu Yuerong
and he
saw
greeted
Song
Rui's
Gigi.
hen, making a fuss.
Hey,
and
how
turned
did you
back.
get these injuries?
Her gaze changed
Did you
instantly.
encounter some
This
powerful
was because
magic
the
beast?
Corpse Mountain had
Eighth Marquis
disappeared.
sneered
There
as
was
he
clearly
glanced
a
at
Corpse
Song
Mountain
Gigi's
just
miserable
now,
appearance.
but now it had become
Don't
a pile
mention
of
it.
graves.
It's that
the four
boy.
generals turned
Song
back
Gigi
at this
pointed
moment
at Yi
and
Hao and
realized
said,
that the
At this time,
100,000
Yi Hao was a
soldiers
soldier
had also
was defeated.
disappeared. No matter
Yi Hao
how
did
they
not
called
kill
out,
them,
but it was
answered.
inevitable for them
Come
to
and
be
take a
bedridden
look.
for a few months.
Rui's hen ran to the four
Damn,
larger
this
graves.
guy is so
The
powerful.
weapon in his hand dropped to the ground in fright as he shouted in
Don't
panic.
worry. Jun
I asked
Tianyu
around.
and the rest came
This
over
boy
to take
used
a look.
to be a citizen
The four
of Yi
graves
country.
had their names
It is said
inscribed
that he
on them.
worships Prince
On them
Nan.
were their life experiences and how long they had lived.
Although Song Gigi
all the
was
way until they
surprised by
attacked
Yi Hao's
Yan
strength,
Huang City
he
and
did
died
not
in the
care about
chaos.
Yi Hao's background.
This is impossible.
He believed
This
Yi
is
Hao's words
impossible.
without a doubt.
I can't be
What
dead.
did you say?
Rui's
Worships
hen hugged
big
his
brother
head and was in a state
Eighth
of
Prince
madness.
looked at Song
Calm
Gigi
down.
with a pondering
We have
expression.
barged into a spirit
Song
design.
Gigi nodded and said,
Jun Tianyu
Yes,
slapped
he said it
Rui's
himself.
face and
Is there a
instantly
problem?
sobered him up.
up. Damn it! Why would there be a spirit design master in Yanhuang City?
He was very angry,
Jun Tianyu
but he
looked
had
around
nothing
cautiously.
There
was
only one
explanation for this strange phenomenon
to be his big
and
brother's
that was
subordinate.
that they had entered
Then
a
his
spirit
big brother
design.
would have one more
Spirit
capable
design?
helper in the fight.
The three
for the
generals
throne.
were tongue-tied.
If not for Song
for them
Jiji's
to
father,
fall into a
he would have
spirit
killed
design
this brainless
unknowingly.
trash.
One could only imagine
how
strong the person who
all
had
of
set
you
it up
stop.
was.
If
If
not
not
for
for
Jun
immediately
Tianyu's
stop
reminder,
them,
they
even
might
if
have
he
been
did not
in a
stop
dead
them,
end.
only
Even they
4
were
or
in
5
such a
of the
state,
100
let
soldiers
alone
were
the
left
soldiers.
standing.
Seeing this
Scene,
are you all right?
He was even more
Shi
certain
Hongmao,
of his thoughts.
who had always been
he
on
was so
bad
young
terms
and
with
had
Yi
such
Ruizen,
strength. Suddenly
he must recruit him for his big brother.
With a smile,
Song
Gigi
looked
at Yi Hao suspiciously.
Jun Tianyu's face was
Do they
filled
know
with
each other?
disbelief as he
Eighth
stared
brother.
at Shihong
Yi
Mao.
Hao frowned when he
Shihong
saw
Mao's
Eighth
actions
Lord,
made him
but
feel
he did
quite
not
strange.
rush to speak.
Suddenly,
Friend,
a
may
white
I know
light
your name?
flashed in
I
Shihong
am
Mao's
the Eighth
hand
Lord
as
of
Jun
Yi country.
Tianyu quickly attacked
Eighth
Shihong
Lord
Mao.
reported his identity
Brother
with a
Tianyu,
smile.
what are you doing?
Greetings, Eighth Lord.
My name
Huiyuerong
is
and
Yi
Yi
Ruizhen looked
Yi
at
Hao
Jun
randomly
Tianyu in
came
shock.
up with a name
They did
and
not
replied
understand
in a neither
why he would
servile
suddenly
nor
attack
overbearing
one of their
manner.
own.
He did
Jun
not know
Tianyu
what
did
this
not
eighth
speak.
brother wanted to do.
He only spoke after
Yi
killing
Shui,
Shihong Mao.
Eighth Lord did not
He is a
expect
fake.
Yi Hao's surname
Huiyuerong
to be
and
Yi.
Yi Ruizhen
But when he
did
thought
not
of the
believe
huge
him at
population
first.
in the world
Only
of
when they saw
10,000
Shihong Mao
kingdoms
turn
and
into
Song
a pile
Gigi
of white
saying
foam
that Yi
did
Hao
they
was
believe
from
Jun
Yi country.
Tianyu's words. He felt
This
relieved.
spirit design
However,
is too
Song
strong.
Gigi stared
We
at
can't
Yi
see
Hao
through
from the
it at
side.
all.
For
Why does he
safety's
feel
sake,
so
the
familiar
two of you
yet
follow
so
behind
unfamiliar?
Have I seen
Tianyu
this
said
kid
nervously.
before? But this
kid's
kid's skills are so
he was
good.
already drenched
I don't
in
have
cold
any
sweat
impression
as
of
he
this
spoke
person.
to the two of them.
The two of them
who
were
was sitting
also
on the
fearful.
horse,
Felt
when they heard
Jun
Jun
Tianyu's
from
words,
behind.
they
Her
immediately
beautiful
ran
eyes
behind Jun
flashed with a
Tianyu,
trace of
seeking
cunning.
protection.
Yi Shui,
Aye.
Yi Hao.
Jun
Is there
Tianyu
a
was about
connection
to
between
speak
them?
when he felt a chill
Brother
on
Yi
his
Shui,
back.
I
Turning
wonder
back,
which country you belong
he saw
to.
the two of them looking
Eighth
at
Prince
him
probed.
with sinister
I
expressions.
have been cultivating
Two
with a
weapons
rogue
were
cultivator
stabbed into
since
his
I was
vitals.
young.
If
After
one
my
stood
master
outside
passed
the spirit
away,
design,
I was alone.
they would see
Now
that
I
behind
want to come
Jun
back and
Tianyu
take a
were
look.
two skeletons.
Yi Hao
There was
casually
not
made
a
up
single
reason
person.
and said,
From the
in that
moment they
case,
stepped
Brother
into
Yi
the
Shui,
spirit design,
are you
they
interested
were
in
moving
being
a
independently?
valiant general and
Everything
expanding
around
the
them
territory
was an
of
illusion.
our country. The other generals
Hearing
were
that Yi Hao was
experiencing
alone,
the same
Eighth
thing as
Prince
him.
was overjoyed.
Yi Hao stood
and
on the
tried
city
to recruit
wall
him
and
with
looked
a
at
smile on
everything
his
in
face.
front of him. About this,
He did not expect
Yi Hao
Jun
showed an
Tianyu
awkward
to be so
expression
unlucky.
and looked at Song
During the
Gigi.
day, the
Yi
spirit
Hao's
design
meaning
would
was
definitely
self-evident.
not be so strong.
Eighth Lord instantly
Even during
knew
the
that
night,
Song
it
Gigi
would not
had
be
made
so
Yi Hao
strong.
unhappy,
Who asked
so
him
Yi
to
Hao
choose
was
unwilling
unwilling
to
to join
today.
them. He was even more dissatisfied with Song Gigi. Chapter
Your
118.
father is also a talent.
Not good. How did he
Yi
give
Hao's
birth
gaze
to such a
changed
trash?
as he immediately
Why are
asked
you
the
looking
weapon
at me?
spirit of Dragon Prison Lake?
Little ball, if
When
we
Song
activate
Gigi
the
heard
10,000
Eighth
soul
Wangya's
array
words,
on a cloudy
he
night
was very
and kill
unhappy
too many
in his
people,
heart.
will it
If Yi
produce
Shui
a heavenly
joined Prince
spirit?
Man,
It would
what?
be difficult for
Heavenly
him to take
spirit.
revenge. You
He
couldn't have
jokingly said,
activated the
"Don't tell me
10,000
you
soul
still want me
array
to
on a cloudy
apologize
night,
to you?
right? Stop
You're
dreaming.
crazy."
The weapon
Lord,
spirit was
this is
originally
really
lying
making
lazily
things difficult
on the
for
head
me.
of the huge
I will
dragon.
take my leave.
When he heard Yi Hao smiled bitterly and
he
shook
instantly
his head.
jumped up and turned
He turned
pale
his
with
horse
fright.
around and was
It's
about
just
to
an
leave.
accident.
Right now,
Yi Hao
realized that
biggest
something
wish
was
was
wrong
to
and
find out
scratched
what
his head
happened
in
in
Yi
Yi
country.
However,
Back then,
he
felt
sent
that he had
Sun
lost
Xian
face
to
to the
the
first
dryly.
prince's side.
Quickly tell
as
me
long
if
as
it's
he could
possible
find
or
Sun
not.
Xian,
You brat.
he would be able to
I don't have time
understand
to
the
explain
current
to you.
situation of
If
Yi
you want to
country.
live,
However,
quickly turn
if
off
he
the
could
array.
get to the first
The
prince's
weapon
side,
spirit
that
already
would be
knew
even
that Yi
better.
Hao had
Brother
activated
Yi
the
Shui,
10,000
please
soul
wait.
array.
Eighth
He
Lord
no
saw
longer
that
had
Yi
the
Hao
chance
was
to
really
explain.
about to leave
If
and
a heavenly
hurriedly stopped him.
spirit was
Quickly
really
apologized to Brother
the
Yi
consequences
Shui.
would be
Eighth
unimaginable.
Prince winked at Song
cloudy
Gigi
night
and
only
pretended
appeared
to be
once
angry.
every 10,000
Song
years
Gigi was
and a
very
heavenly
unwilling,
spirit,
but he
had a
couldn't
very
not
small
give
chance
face
of
Eighth
being
Lord.
produced.
He gritted
However,
his teeth and
his
said,
condition
"I'm
was
sorry.
that it had to be on
Brat,
a cloudy
don't
night.
fall into my
A
hands.
heavenly Een spirit
Song
had
Gigi
only
will
appeared
not let
3
you off.
times in the
Song
10,000
Gigi
kingdom
suppressed
continent.
the anger in
Each
his heart.
time, it would
After
set off a
apologizing,
bloody storm in
he
the
immediately
10,000
turned
kingdom
around
continent
and entered the city.
This was because
he
the
had suffered
heavenly
losses
spirit
in Yi Hao's
was too
hands
powerful.
several times.
A powerful
in a row.
heavenly
It
Een
made him
spirit
lose
could
face.
even summon an incomparably powerful heavenly Een beast. There was only one
Chapter
way for a heavenly
125.
Een spirit to
Eighth
become
Wangya
stronger,
also did not
and that
pay
was
attention
to kill
Song Gigi.
Therefore,
Song
no one
Gigi
dared
was
to
just
set
a
up a
playboy.
killing array on
How
a
could
cloudy
he be
night.
compared
The
to a
10,000
talented
soul
general?
array was
Moreover,
even more of
at
a
this
killing
critical
array.
moment, it would
The
increase
5
the
forces
chances
were
of a
chasing
heavenly
the throne
Een
together.
spirit appearing.
One more talent
When a
was
heavenly
one more
Een
spirit appeared. In his eyes, the first to be devoured strength was at least at the mid-level of a martial general. If Yi Hao, his elder brother, did not have many such masters would definitely die. The key was that Yi Hao was alone and so young. Evil force with a little 10,000 kingdom he would definitely was rapidly setting up a killing array. However, in an attempt to summon he did not know that the future valiant general all of you better remember his younger brother. There must not be the slightest mistake when summoning the heavenly Lord has sincerely invited me, I have waited for this day for thousands of years. Yi Hao said pretentiously, a martial saint-level old demon said in a hoarse voice under saw a black portrait on the city wall. Old ancestor, don't worry, wanted criminal, everything has been imprinted in his eyes. The person who made the sacrifice also followed your instructions, the pain of cultivating the 10,000 wandering ordinary was not even 1,000. No one will find out the pain of a martial emperor in the middle said, but while now, trembling, the eighth Wang Ye was so respectful. Then what are we waiting for? Could it be that he couldn't stand his half-brother, who had the same father but a different mother? ZMO saw the change. The old monster quickly walked into the center of the array. Are you unhappy? No, if he wanted to subdue I left the heavenly hometown when I was young, he would have to risk his life and let the heavenly had forgotten that the little girl in his arms only then would he have a chance to subdue the heavenly. He came back to his senses. However, and said, if he was not careful, a martial saint of a generation and squeezed into Yi Hao's arms in the myriad kingdom continent. The eighth Lord did not take Yi Hao to the palace. Isn't this too risky? Yi Hao's doubts. If something happened to the great ancestor, with a smile, the holy blood demon cult would suffer a devastating blow. But the palace is currently being expanded. Therefore, the middle-aged martial emperor was hesitant, temporarily staying in the Prince Nan's residence. I've been waiting for this day for far too long. A cloudy night only happens once every 10,000 years. Well informed. If you miss this chance, you won't get another one. The kingdom of Yi does not allow people to be crowned as kings. And without moving, Yi Hao was riding side by side burst out from his body and took the opportunity to the martial emperor's face. The eighth Lord was silent for a long time. I know my mistake. Yi Hao quickly laughed. Thank you for sparing my life. Any inconvenience, great ancestor, just pretend that I didn't ask. The martial emperor did not even have time to wipe the blood off his mouth as he quickly got up and knelt on the ground didn't to express his gratitude. The array was activated and said, Brother 10,000 innocent people, even if I don't tell you into the array by the you'll find emperor. Out when the time comes. In an instant, so they were crushed nothing inconvenient by the martial saint's aura. Thank you, blood splattered everywhere, for clearing my 10,000 people Yi Hao were killed by the martial saint and pretended to be curious, and they were turned into sacrifices. This is also the shame of my Yi country. After the time for half an incense stick the group of guards behind the martial saint also had a desolate expression and leaped toward a black dot. Eighth Wang Ye martial saint immediately some time ago, the late emperor led his troops to battle and was kidnapped by a mysterious expert. The martial emperor his whereabouts are still unknown. With concern. Kidnapped by a mysterious ancestor. Seeing that the martial saint great ancestor did not respond, Yi Hao's expression changed when he heard this. But in order not to let others find the darkness, he could only suppress the anger and worry in his heart. The martial saint no one noticed Yi Hao's abnormality out a mouthful of blood, hid it but he still sat there without moving. ZMO was his lying expression in Yi Hao's was ferocious. She could clearly feel that when nervous Wang Ye said when they saw the great ancestor spitting out Yi Hao's body, they became even more worried. I've admired the late heavenly since I was young. Did not compromise. The late emperor was extremely brave. Instead, when I heard that was attacking him from within his body, I was naturally to be able to make the martial saint that all the generals would think one could imagine how powerful the heavenly instantly attracted many people. The anxious wait was very long. No matter what, this was a matter that concerned the life and death of the Holy Blood Demon Church. I heard that it was someone from the Great Sun Dynasty. The Holy Blood Demon Church would fall again. I don't know if it's true, and there would be no chance for them to rise again. If the great ancestor could reach an agreement with the heavenly spirit, I'll massacre your entire blood demon church would rise again. Eyes were filled with murderous intent of the 10,000 kingdoms secretly. Victory or defeat, if he couldn't it all depended on whether the great ancestor could reach an agreement with the heavenly spirit. Master, there must be something else. There's no reason for a dynasty to kidnap the emperor that covered the sky. Moreover, he said that your father was killed to the ground. This means that your father is definitely still alive. The great ancestor withdrew his aura. The giant dragon's voice reached Yi Hao's mind. Are you the great ancestor? Only then did Yi Hao feel slightly relieved. One of the martial emperors asked he would soon reach the Great Sun Dynasty. They did not know if the great ancestor was still alive. And whether it was the great ancestor or the heavenly Marquette kingdom. It's me. After the Ling dynasty was the imperial dynasty. In an ancestor, Yi Hao felt immense pressure. When the martial emperors heard the great power of Yan Huang City, they immediately rejoiced. He could only have a little status blood among the church can finally rise all again. His trump cards combined I have already reached an agreement with that person. Moreover,
That's right.
it would take
Earlier,
at least
I
a
was
dozen
severely
kingdoms
injured
to be
and
comparable
will need
to the
to
lowest
enter closed
imperial
door
dynasty.
cultivation for a
It was
period of
conceivable
time.
that the great
So
Sun
you
dynasty
all must
was
not
like a
leak any
huge
information.
mountain that was pressing
Otherwise,
on Yi
everything
Hao's
we
heart.
did would have been
However,
in vain.
in order
The
to
great
save his
ancestor's
father,
voice
no
became
matter
even
how
more
huge
deep
the
and
mountain
terrifying,
was, it had
suppressing
to be
the martial emperors
Therefore,
to the point that
he
they
had
could
to
not
seize
breathe.
the power of Yi
Don't
country
worry,
as
great
soon as
ancestor.
possible.
Only
Moreover,
the few of
what
us
the
know
giant
about
dragon
this.
said was
The
very
great
reasonable.
ancestor nodded
Why would
in
such a
satisfaction.
huge imperial
Suddenly,
dynasty kidnap
he was
his
stunned
father?
for a long time
Although his
before he
father
said,
was also
"That
an
person
emperor,
has something to
he was
tell
like
you
an
all."
ant in front of
That
them.
person?
Would a giant
martial
be calculated
emperors were
with an
stunned.
ant? However,
Even if
they
they would,
immediately
there would
knew
be a
that the
reason
heavenly
for it.
Een spirit
They could
wanted
just
to
crush the
instruct
ant
them
to
on
death.
something. Why would
They
they do
immediately
something
knelt
so
on the ground.
superfluous?
Lord Heavenly
If they wanted
Een,
to
please
kidnap him,
instruct us.
even if they did not
I sense
send
an
someone
aura
to
that is
kidnap
no
him,
weaker than
they
mine
could have
in the
just sent
southwest.
someone to pass on
Quickly
the order.
go and investigate.
His father would
The
have to
heavenly
go
Een
obediently.
spirit said with a
No matter
grave
how he
expression.
thought about it,
The heavenly
great
Een
Sun
spirit
dynasty
said
would
with a
not
serious
kidnap his
expression.
father for no reason.
There was only one heavenly Een spirit, and
As
the
for
other
the
one
reason,
had to
however,
be destroyed.
regardless of
Therefore,
whether there was
he
an
had to be
ulterior
careful.
motive,
He
is
had to
another
become
one.
stronger. The martial
Unify the
emperors
country
revealed
of Yi
expressions
and
of
raise
disbelief.
the level of the country.
Don't worry.
Moreover,
Lord Heavenly
I have
Een,
discovered that
we
there
will
are two
investigate
experts
quickly
in the dark who are much stronger
over.
than me.
The
If
heavenly
I am
Een
not
spirit
wrong,
seems
they
to
are
have
at
appeared.
least at the
Yi
martial
Hao
emperor
said with
level.
a bitter expression
The
when
giant
he saw
dragon
the clump
continued.
of black fog in
Right
the
now,
10,000 soul
his cultivation
formation.
level had
Yi
not
Hao
fully
clearly knew
recovered.
that the clump of black
Otherwise,
fog
two martial
was the initial
emperors would
state
be
of
nothing
the heavenly
in his
Een
eyes.
spirit.
When
The
did
artifact
they appear?
spirit frowned
Yi Hao
and
did
quickly
not
thought
think
of a
that he was
solution
attractive
for Yi Hao.
enough to attract
Don't be
two
anxious.
martial emperors.
This heavenly Een
He
spirit
looked
might be a
suspiciously
fortuitous
at
encounter
ZMO
for you.
who was sitting
The
in front
artifact
of him.
spirit suddenly
It's when
laughed
Master
heartily when
saved
he
this
saw the
little
huge
girl.
dragon below
As
him.
expected,
Yi Hao had already guessed that ZMO's identity was not ordinary. However, he did not expect her to have two martial emperors as her bodyguards. No matter what, I have to be careful. At this moment, Yi Hao finally understood how important it was for him to use the disguise pill under the instruction of the weapon spirit. Yi Hao would never have thought that his father's kidnapping was related to ZMO. At this moment, he only thought that ZMO was someone from a big faction. As for why she would appear here, he did not know. He did not connect the two at all. However, it was fortunate that he had used the disguise pill. Otherwise, the two martial emperors would definitely not let him go. Moreover, ZMO had appeared in the country of Yi to look for him. At this moment, Yi Hao was wholeheartedly thinking of unifying the country of Yi. However, the enemy he had to face now was his half-brother. He did not know what to do. However, he had already seen more than a dozen arrest warrants for him in the city. This made his hesitant heart even more resolute. Chapter 126. Jir, why are you back so early? What happened to your injuries? When Song Kong heard the guard report that his son had returned, he quickly put down the things in his hand. When he saw the wounds on Song Jiji's body, he hurriedly asked with heartache, "You pieces of trash, how did you protect the young master? Men, drag them out and beat them up." Looking at the guards who were also injured, Song Kang's eyes flashed with a trace of viciousness. The guards cried and begged for mercy as they were dragged away by a group of people. Song Jiji did not beg for mercy for his subordinate. "My son, aren't you a third-rank martial general? Did you encounter a powerful magical beast?" Song Kong did not understand how his son had suffered such heavy injuries after going out for a trip. "Father, you have to uphold justice for your son." Song Jiji immediately cried with snot and tears. He was also worried that Yi Hao would not be able to take revenge after being recognized by Prince Nan. Therefore, he could only look for his father and say that Yi Hao was unforgivable. Only then would he be able to take revenge. "Hurry up and bring me my medicinal pills," Song Kong hurriedly ordered the maid. At the same time, he pulled Song Jiji to the front of the chair. "My son, don't cry. Who hurt you? Even if I have to sacrifice my old life, I will avenge you." The moment Song Kong spoke, his body emitted an aura. Song Jiji's face lit up. "Father, you've broken through to the 8th rank martial general?
Yes, it's all thanks to the envoy of the Qian country who contributed some pills to Prince Nan. Prince Nan rewarded me with a few pills. The current me is much stronger than the previous Yi Batian. In the past, the Yi country was restricted by the Qian country, so the strongest warrior had not reached the martial general level. Now that Prince Nan was cooperating with the Zhao country and the Qian country, his strength naturally increased by leaps and bounds. Although the Yi country was torn apart, its overall strength had increased by more than one level. Even a playboy like Song Jiji could reach the first rank of martial general. It could be imagined that as long as there was a miracle pill, even a pig could become a strong person. Father, I was injured by a nameless junior. He even stole your daughter-in-law. Seeing that his father's strength had risen to the 8th rank of martial general, Song Jiji was once again filled with hope for revenge. His father was so important to Prince Nan. Would Prince Nan alienate his father for a nobody? Song Jiji revealed a sinister smile. Song Jiji added oil to the fire, saying that Yi Hao was an unpardonable sinner. He and Zmo had fallen in love at first sight, but in the end, Yi Hao had interfered, and Song Kong had actually believed it. Song Kong narrowed his eyes. Are you saying that the boy named Yi Shui was taken away by the 8th prince? Song Jiji nodded. That's troublesome. Song Kong knew his position very well. Although he was below tens of thousands of people, he was still a person with a high status. But compared to the 1st prince and the 8th prince, the two of them were blood-related brothers. It was not good for him to interfere in this matter. However, on one side was his precious son, and on the other side was the 8th prince. Song Kong was in a dilemma, but he still chose to avenge his son. How strong is that kid? I don't know. Let me go to Prince Nan's place to take a look. I will definitely not let this kid go. Song Kong was more cautious. After all, as the Prime Minister, he still had to figure out Yi Hao's strength. If he was weaker than him, he could just kill him directly. He believed that Prince Nan would not make things difficult for him. If he was stronger than him, he could only think of countermeasures. Greetings, big brother. The 8th prince entered the study first and greeted him. Sigh, 8th brother, how many times have I said it? We are brothers, there is no need for these unnecessary formalities. Prince Nan saw that it was the 8th prince and quickly stood up to help him up. He smiled and asked, 8th brother, didn't you go out to look for Prince Ran? Why are you back? The 8th prince immediately replied with a smile, Big brother, that matter is not urgent. It's not like you don't know Ran Min. Many people have been sent to join forces with him, but they were all sent back by him. This time, it will be difficult for me to go. 8th brother, you can't say that. If it wasn't for my status, I would have gone to see Ran Min. Prince Nan thought that the 8th prince had given up and comforted him. Big brother, I didn't say that I won't go. Why are you in such a hurry? The 8th prince said with a smile, I have something to report to you. Something? Prince Nan squinted his eyes and looked at the 8th prince in confusion. What could be more important than this? You must know that there is still a month before the battle for the throne. We don't have time. Big brother, I met a talent when I went out this time. The 8th prince said happily. Where? Prince Nan's heart was moved. Prince Nan's face suddenly changed. What is this person's background? Could he be a spy sent by those princes? The spy that Prince Nan was talking about was naturally the other prince's men. Hearing this, the 8th prince's face changed slightly. He recalled Yi Hao's words and replied with a smile, Don't worry, big brother. I know what kind of people they have. This time, this person is really a talent. He definitely has nothing to do with them. That's good. Prince Nan nodded with satisfaction. By the way, do you have any clues about Yi Hao's matter? You must know that the battle for the throne is about to begin. The other princes are already very competitive. If Yi Hao comes out at this critical time, Yi Hao suddenly became strong from a fool to a genius. It was impossible that there was no one helping him. Now that they had obtained some resources, their strength was also increasing. They were even more sure that Yi Hao had someone helping him. Qian Guo and the people of the ninth heaven had said that Yi Hao was not dead. Although Yi Hao had disappeared for almost a year, he had always been a thorn in the prince's hearts. If they were not careful, they would repeat the mistake of the imperial dragon list. The princes were constantly fighting among themselves, but they had always been doing the same thing. That was to look for Yi Hao. Every corner of the Yi country was covered with Yi Hao's portrait. Even when Yi Batian was kidnapped, the Yi country did not mobilize so many people. How ironic was that? No. The eighth prince shook his head in disappointment. Prince Nan sighed. Prince Nan sat on the chair and continued to ask, "Tell me the background of the talent you mentioned. I will analyze it." Eighth Wangye recalled everything and told Prince Nan everything without missing a single detail. "You are saying that he has a conflict with Song Jiji?" Prince Nan frowned. "Then why did you bring him here? Aren't you deliberately causing a conflict between me and Prime Minister Song?" Prince Nan rebuked. "But big brother, this person is really strong and very talented." The eighth prince did not expect Song Kong to be so important in Prince Nan's heart. But when he thought about how Yi Hao could easily defeat more than 100 city gate guards, he said unwillingly, "Reporting to Your Highness, General Sun requests an audience." A guard said carefully. Chapter 127. Do you know that person just now? Sitting in the living room, Zmo asked. "I don't know him." Yi Hao shook his head lightly. "Then why did he talk to you?" "That person seems to have a high status in the Prince Nan's residence. Moreover, his gaze was so respectful." Zmo's eyes revealed a cunning look. She wanted to see any changes in Yi Hao's expression. But what made her disappointed was that Yi Hao sat on the chair with his head lowered and did not pay attention to her at all. Zmo snorted mischievously. "Sooner or later, I will dig out your secret." At this time, Song Kong also came to the living room. He glanced coldly at Yi Hao and said coldly, "You are Yi Shui. You are the one who hit my son." Yi Hao raised his eyelids and glanced at Song Kong. He ignored him and continued to look at the teacup in his hand. There seemed to be something on it that attracted him. Seeing that Yi Hao sat on the chair and did not understand, the guard beside Song Kong shouted angrily, "How dare you? Why don't you bow when you see our Lord Song? I am not your subordinate. Why should I bow to you?" Yi Hao looked at Song Kong as if he was looking at an idiot and said coldly, "How dare you?" The guard shouted angrily and was about to pounce on Yi Hao. Song Kong did not speak up to stop him. He observed Yi Hao's aura and found that he was only a third-level marshal general. As for his personal bodyguard, his strength had reached the fifth-level marshal general. It was just right for him to teach this brat who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth a lesson. However, Yi Hao's talent had indeed moved him. However, he could only blame himself for provoking his son. No matter how talented he was, he could not escape death. Moreover, Yi Hao's attitude towards him made him even more unhappy. "Be gentle. Don't let the Prince Nan's residence be stained with blood." Song Kong stood aside and said. Yi Hao smiled as he looked at the guard who was rushing towards him. His 2 fingers were like hooks and attacked his throat. The guard's eyes were filled with ridicule and killing intent. Yi Hao's smile turned cold. "Come, don't be impulsive. Drink a cup of tea to cool down." The guard was very close to Yi Hao. He thought that the attack would hit Yi Hao, but Yi Hao dodged it easily. The whole teacup hit the guard's face. The broken pieces of the teacup pierced into the guard's flesh. Blood mixed with the tea leaves. "Ah! I'm going to kill you!" The guard howled in pain. He grabbed the solid wooden stool and threw it at Yi Hao. "Be careful," Zmo reminded him with trepidation. The distance between Yi Hao and the guard was less than a meter. The guard was holding a solid wooden stool in his hand. Furthermore, the guard was so angry that he attacked like a madman. It was obvious that the guard's aura was 2 levels higher than Yi Hao's. This meant that Yi Hao was doomed. Song Kong was gloating at the side. It had been a long time since he had expressed his emotions so clearly. Today was the first time he wanted to kill someone so badly. Furthermore, he could already see Yi Hao's head being smashed by the chair. Stop it! Just when Yi Hao wanted to kill the guard, Prince Nan came out with 8th Lord and Sun Xian. 8th Lord saw this scene and immediately shouted anxiously. The guard was stunned by this reprimand. He put down the chair unwillingly. He covered his face and looked at Yi Hao with hatred. If it weren't for 8th Lord's sudden appearance, this young man in front of him would definitely be lying on the ground. However, he didn't know that if it weren't for 8th Lord's reprimand, he would be dead now. Instead, 8th Lord saved him. Greetings, Your Highness Prince Nan. Greetings, 8th Lord. Anger appeared on Song Kang's face. This 8th prince just had to ruin his plans. Song Kong looked at the 8th prince with a displeased expression. However, with Prince Nan here, he didn't dare to be too presumptuous. What's going on here? Prince Nan frowned and asked with dissatisfaction. These people didn't give him any face at all. Could it be that what Sun Xian said was true? Song Kong had become arrogant and didn't put him in his eyes. Otherwise, how could he explain the look in his eyes? Moreover, he dared to act so brazenly in Prince Nan's residence. Because of the scene just now, in the eyes of everyone, Yi Hao was obviously at a disadvantage. Therefore, everyone naturally thought that it was Song Kong who ordered people to make a move. Lord Song, it's not appropriate to make a move in Prince Nan's residence. 8th Lord looked at Song Kong with dissatisfaction. He didn't give him any face. He knew that Yi Shui was a talent that he introduced to his elder brother, but he still wanted to kill him. If he came out a little later, Yi Hao might be lying on the ground now. Lord Song, it's not that I want to criticize you, but it's a little too much to make a move in Prince Nan's residence. Everything can be discussed calmly. Sun Xian also said with a smile. The reprimand in his tone couldn't be more obvious. At the same time, Sun Xian was also puzzled. Who was this Yi Shui? How did he know about Yanwang Tower? Could he be the Lord? But his height didn't seem like it. Because Yi Hao and Sun Xian met by chance just now, Yi Hao and Sun Xian simply greeted each other. However, Yi Hao didn't reveal his identity. Although Sun Xian was puzzled, he still went to ask for an official position for Yi Hao. He wanted to find news about Yi Hao through Yi Shui. Those who knew about Yanwang Tower's layout, other than the Lord, were his own people. No matter what, the young man in front of him was definitely not an outsider. Reporting to Prince Nan, this Yi Shui hurt my son. I can't just let it go like this. Song Kong ignored 8th Lord and Sun Xian's reprimand and said with a strong attitude. He also wanted to know if he was more important than this wild boy in Prince Nan's heart. At the same time, he was also very shocked. How long had it been? 8th Lord and Sun Xian actually spoke up for Yi Hao. Who was this young man? How could his methods be so strong? If he gave up, Yi Hao would definitely stand on top of his head in the future. Not to mention his cultivation talent, he was already a 3rd-level martial general at such a young age. It didn't take long for 8th Lord and Sun Xian to stand on his side and fight against him. If this continued, he would lose his position in Prince Nan's residence. Lord Song, don't tell me you don't know your son's nature. He bullies men and women, forcibly abducts and commits all kinds of crimes. Do you really think that Big Brother doesn't know? 8th Lord said coldly. This. Cold sweat appeared on Song Kang's head. Of course, he knew his son, but he didn't expect 8th Lord to talk about it openly. If Prince Nan really talked about it, he wouldn't be able to escape the blame. This matter is over. Prince Nan didn't want to offend Song Kong too much. After all, this was a critical moment. If he had to choose,
he would definitely kill Yi Shui and choose to rope in Song Kong. Fortunately, Song Jiji's but was not clean. Song Kong knew in his heart that he couldn't figure out Prince Nan's heart, so he could only admit defeat. Chapter 128. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't figure out who Yi Shui resembled. He smiled and shook his head, thinking that he was too suspicious. Yi Hao, I wonder if you are willing to pledge your allegiance to me? Prince Nan asked. This subordinate is willing. Yi Hao pretended to be happy and quickly bowed. Good, then I will. Prince Nan was overjoyed. However, when he thought about what kind of position to give Yi Hao, he was troubled. If the position was too high, it would be hard to convince the masses. Song Kong was the first to object. If the position was too low, he was afraid that Yi Hao would have a knot in his heart and Yi Hao wouldn't be satisfied. Song Kong rolled his eyes and revealed a sly smile. He stood out and cupped his fist. Your Highness, this Yi Shui's strength is not bad. However, he can only be a small commander of the guards. Otherwise, it would be hard to convince the masses at such a young age. Yes, Song Qing is right. Prince Nan agreed. However, 8th Wang Ye and Sun Xian weren't happy. Yi Hao's strength was one of the best in the army. If they only gave him a small commander of the guards, he would only be able to manage 20 people. That would be too much. Moreover, he wouldn't even have the chance to make a name for himself. To put it nicely, he was a small commander. To put it bluntly, he was just a gatekeeper. However, Yi Hao didn't care at all. He wasn't really looking for an official position. He was just preparing to unify the country of Yi. As long as he didn't arouse any suspicion, he didn't care. Song Kong knew that this would happen. He sneered. It's not impossible to be a general. Isn't your Highness worried about Ran Min's matter? As long as Yi Shui can win over Ran Min and stand on the same side as us, how about we give him the title of Great General? Song Kang's words caused everyone's expression to change. Winning over Ran Min was easier said than done. Even if Song Kong personally went out, he was chased away 3 times. Ran Min was brave and fierce. He was one of the major powers near the country of Yi. He had tens of thousands of soldiers and horses under him. However, he was a scattered snob. He didn't establish a country nor did he rely on any snob. Moreover, Ran Min was the closest to Prince Nan, so Prince Nan wanted to rope in Ran Min. However, Ran Min didn't give him any face at all, but he couldn't do anything about it. Seeing that the fight for the throne was imminent, whether or not he could rope in Ran Min was the key to Prince Nan's success. At this time, it was very difficult. Moreover, the last time Song Kong was chased back, Ran Min said that if Song Kong dared to go again, he would break his legs. Therefore, Song Kong was so scared that he didn't dare to go again. This time, the one who was sent was 8th Wang Ye. Yi Shui, do you agree? Song Kong narrowed his eyes and looked at Yi Hao. In his opinion, the young man was proud and arrogant. He would definitely agree to the temptation of a general's position, but he would definitely not be satisfied with a small commander. As long as Yi Hao dared to agree, he would release some news and Yi Hao would definitely not be able to return. Yi Hao glanced at Song Kong indifferently and said with a smile, I'm not going. I'm used to being lazy. It's already troublesome for me to be the commander of the guards, let alone being a general. I can't stand it. It's good that you're going. What do you mean you're not going? This is the position of a general. At the very least, you have to command thousands of troops. You have to think carefully. Song Kong thought that Yi Hao had already agreed, but he didn't expect that Yi Hao actually thought that the position of a small commander of the guards was too big. Was he still a normal person? If Yi Hao really refused, how could he kill Yi Hao? He couldn't help but say anxiously. Prince Nan and the others were also a little surprised. They didn't expect Yi Hao to refuse so easily. It wasn't common to see someone who could make Song Kong suffer. Yi Hao's refusal made Song Kong feel like he was punching cotton.
It was completely useless. Yi Hao, don't tell me you don't dare? Song Kong looked at Yi Hao with a sneer. His tone was full of ridicule. Song Kong also had no other choice. He could only use this crude method to provoke Yi Hao, hoping that he would agree because he was young and impetuous. You're an idiot, but don't think that others are idiots too. Yi Hao rolled his eyes at Song Kong. Don't you want me to agree? Fine, if it's done, how about we change the condition? Song Kong was about to get angry, but Yi Hao suddenly changed the topic. Song Kang's face darkened as he asked, What condition? If I manage to rope in Ran Min, you will kneel on the ground and slap yourself when you see me. How about that? Yi Hao stated a condition. To Yi Hao, this condition couldn't be any easier. After all, he himself was a prince. Although the Yi country was currently in a state of chaos, this request wasn't too excessive. But in the eyes of others, it was different. To make a prime minister kneel on the ground and slap himself, did he really think of himself as an emperor? Or was he some powerful martial artist? In the eyes of others, although Yi Hao's talent wasn't bad, he was still just a nobody. He was just slightly stronger. But if he wanted Song Kong to kneel, he was really arrogant and condescending. Even 8th Wang Ye's face darkened. He didn't expect Yi Hao to state such a condition. He took a peek and sure enough, eldest brother's face was also angered. Song Kang's face was even more gloomy. Sun Xian wanted to speak, but he really didn't know Yi Hao's true identity. He didn't know if he should speak or not. If he offended Song Kong for this unknown person, was it worth it? Why, you don't dare? Lord Zhou. Yi Hao narrowed his eyes at Song Kong. It was hard to tell if he was happy or angry. In just a short while, Yi Hao returned Song Kang's words to him, word for word. Everyone looked at Song Kong. They wanted to know what he was going to say. Regardless of whether Song Kong agreed or not, he was at a disadvantage. If he refused, it meant that he didn't dare and that he was admitting defeat. If he agreed, regardless of whether Yi Hao could win over Ran Min or not, he would be the one losing face. This young man can't be the Lord, right? He's actually so smart. Sun Xian stood at the side and looked at Yi Hao. He was shocked. Zmo sat on the chair and looked playfully at Yi Hao's expressionless face. She thought to herself, who is he? He's definitely not a young man from an ordinary family. Just by the fact that he's wearing a set of level 4 spiritual weapons, it means that his background is not simple. No matter who you are, I hope you're not Yi Hao. Otherwise. Thinking of this, Zmo couldn't help but feel a little flustered. She was a little depressed and lowered her head to think about her own worries. No matter what, this boy can't be left alive. A murderous intent flashed in Song Kang's eyes. Yi Hao's calmness made him feel threatened. Suddenly, his expression changed and he smiled. Okay, I agree. In that case, I'll give you 3 days. Seeing that both of them had agreed, Prince Nan didn't interrupt and agreed. Chapter 129. Anyone could see that Song Kong had thought of a way to deal with Yi Hao, which was why he was in such a hurry to return. Brother Yi Shui, why don't you apologize to Lord Song? It's better than losing your life. 8th Prince suddenly advised when he saw Prince Nan leaving. Seeing that Yi Hao was still silent, 8th Prince felt a little guilty. After all, he was the one who brought Yi Hao here. He couldn't just watch Yi Hao lose his life. How about this, Brother Yi Hao? I'll accompany you out of the city. Once we're out of the city, you can leave immediately. With your ability, you can do well wherever you go. Yi Hao looked at his 8th brother strangely. The worry on his face couldn't be faked. He recalled how he was bullied by all his brothers in the palace. Suddenly, Yi Hao asked, 8th Prince, who is the one who posted the wanted posters all over the city? It's just an ambitious prince. After hesitating for a while, 8th Prince suddenly said. Heh! Yi Hao sneered. It was more like a self-deprecating laugh. How could his brother be so nice to a person he had only met once? How could he say that his brother was ambitious? Perhaps this was the family of an emperor. What's wrong? Eighth prince asked with concern. Yi Hao shook his head. Ran Min, Heavenly King Ran. This name was known by everyone in the vicinity of the Yi country. He single-handedly conquered a city that belonged to the Yi country. In less than a year, he developed rapidly and occupied 4 to 5 cities. Not only that, his strength was unfathomable and he was the target of many major powers in the Yi country. In fact, other than Ran Min, there were 2 other people with strength that wasn't inferior to Ran Min. One was Yu Fei and the other was Suda. Both of them were snobbish, but they refused to be roped in by any forces. This caused the princes to suffer many setbacks. However, they couldn't do anything about it. At this crucial moment, no one was willing to go to war. They only wanted to develop their snobbish forces and fight for the throne in a month's time. The news of Yi Hao and Song Kang's bet immediately spread to the major forces. Of course, most of this was due to Song Kang's efforts. Song Kang sent someone to announce that Yi Hao had spoken rudely and severely injured Ran Min. He didn't even put Ran Min in his eyes, however. No one knew that Song Kang was deliberately spreading the rumor. They thought that it was really Yi Hao who said it. At the same time, all the big powers were investigating who Yi Shui was. Even the marquises had to be polite to Ran Min, so why did Yi Shui dare to speak so rudely to Ran Min? At the same time, the other big powers wanted to see Prince Nan make a fool of himself. No matter what, Yi Shui was Prince Nan's man. It was impossible for Prince Nan to form an alliance with Ran Min. Prince Nan was also kept in the dark. As for Yi Shui, in everyone's eyes, he was just a small fry that was about to be killed by Ran Min. As long as he could destroy the cooperation between Ran Min and Prince Nan, it would be a good thing for everyone else. In order to achieve his goal, Song Kang was willing to do anything. In order to kill Yi Hao, he would do anything even if the relationship between South King City and Ran Min worsened. Father, your move is really smart. As long as this brat dares to go to Ran Min's territory, he will definitely die. Song Jiji's shoulder was wrapped in bandages as he lay on the chair and laughed. Master, if Prince Nan finds out about this, I'm afraid. The old butler looked at the laughing father and son and wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. The smile on Song Jiji's face disappeared and he said unhappily, What are you afraid of? It's not like you don't know my father's position in Prince Nan's heart. Even if Prince Nan finds out, what can he do? The old butler sighed and didn't say anything else. If he continued, he would only be asking for trouble. Song Kang's face became serious. Looking at his son, he shook his head and smiled bitterly. However, he only had one son and he could only spoil him. Moreover, Yi Hao had indeed angered him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done this. You are right. As long as I receive news of this brat's death, I will go to Prince Nan and ask for forgiveness. Song Kang naturally understood the old butler's words. However, as long as he could kill Yi Shui, even if His Highness wasn't happy, so what? Since he had already reached this step, no matter what, it was too late. He was certain that Prince Nan wouldn't abandon him at this crucial moment. Otherwise, Prince Nan's position would be even more fragile. Father, do you think this brat can really cooperate with Ran Min? Suddenly, Song Jiji sat up and asked with a face full of worry. Song Kang paused for a moment and smiled. Don't worry. Every time I treat him with respect, that boor Ran Min ignores me. This time, if I spread the rumor, as long as Ran Min's brain isn't damaged, he will definitely kill Yi Shui. Every time he thought about Ran Min's attitude towards him, Song Kang's heart trembled. He didn't dare to imagine Ran Min's gaze. Therefore, as long as Yi Shui dared to go to Ran Min's territory, he would definitely be torn apart by Ran Min. Interesting. That father and son pair must be very happy right now. Yi Hao laughed in his heart. If there was anyone in this world who could command Ranmin, it would definitely be him. Not to mention cooperating, even if he asked him to commit suicide, Ranmin would immediately commit suicide without batting an eyelid. If it was any other mission, Yi Hao might have considered it carefully. However, this mission was simply like playing a game. Ranmin must be furious right now and want to kill me. Yi Hao laughed in his heart. He didn't know what Ranmin's expression would be when he saw him. Hey, don't tell me you're really going to look for that Ran-min? Zmo asked with half-closed eyes. She had no choice but to follow Yi Hao. At this moment, Zmo was lying comfortably in Yi Hao's arms. Giant dragon, are they still there? Yi Hao didn't answer Zmo immediately. Instead, he used his mind to ask the giant dragon. They've been following. The giant dragon replied cautiously. Zmo, who exactly are you? Why are you following me? Yi Hao was very curious. However, he didn't open his mouth to ask. He didn't know how to start. Of course I'm going. Don't you want to see that old thing kneel down and slap him? Yi Hao said softly. Aren't you afraid of death? That old thing will definitely speak ill of you in front of Ranmin. I heard that Ranmin has a strange personality and has a very bad temper. Zmo was lying in Yi Hao's arms. As she wasn't sitting comfortably, she adjusted her position and continued to ask. How did you know? Yi Hao asked with a smile. Well, I caught a beggar in the city just now and asked him. I even gave him a silver coin. Zmo blushed and said embarrassedly. It's okay. Ranmin has a bad temper. I have a good temper. Yi Hao glanced at Zmo and said lightly. Chapter 130. When Zmo heard Yi Hao's words, she raised her eyebrows. Don't ask me to save you. 8 Delta 1 Chinese net. You? Yi Hao looked down at the 2 small hills in front of Zmo and smacked his lip. Ranmin probably doesn't like such small ones. Zmo noticed Yi Hao's burning gaze and covered her chest. However, when she heard Yi Hao's words, she was like a kitten whose tail had been stepped on. She immediately flew into a rage and put her hands down. She purposely stuck out her chest. Which part of me is small? Tell me clearly. Yi Hao became even more unscrupulous. His eyes kept wandering around Zmo's chest. Yi Hao secretly nodded in his heart. This little girl's chest was indeed not bad. You big pervert. I'm not done with you. Zmo knew that she had been tricked by Yi Hao. She even purposely showed it to Yi Hao. Thinking of this, Zmo became even more shy. Haha. How dare you scold my people? I really want to see. Hearing his subordinate's report, Ranmin was not angry. Instead, he laughed. Heavenly King, do you want me to kill that Yi Shui directly? One of his subordinates stood up and said angrily. In their hearts, Ranmin was a godlike existence. They absolutely could not tolerate the slightest insult. When Ranmin thought of his lord who had disappeared for half a year, he could not help but show a longing expression. However, he could not brazenly send people to look for him. The more he did, the more surprised he was. He had gained a lot of combat experience in battle. Relying on his own talent, he forcibly raised his strength to a level 9 martial general. Only then did he realize how big the outside world was, therefore, the pace of expansion gradually slowed down. In the past half a year, many forces had tried to rope him in. However, without Yi Hao's order, Ranmin rejected all the temptations and threats. South King, do you really think that I, Ranmin, am easy to bully? If it wasn't for my lord, I would definitely destroy you. Ranmin looked in the direction of South King City and said softly. If that's the case, I'll take Yi Shui's head. Consider it a warning. Old K looked at his angry subordinates and ordered, Go to the city gate and give that brat Yi Shui a verbal warning. If he doesn't know what's good for him, just kill him. Yes. The group of subordinates was overjoyed. They had already sentenced Yi Hao to death in their hearts. The Heavenly King had tolerated the South King's city time and time again. This group of subordinates couldn't stand it anymore. If it wasn't for Old K's restraint, they would have already led their troops to attack the South King's city. This time, whether or not Yi Shui was the one who said those words, it was a slap to Ran Min's face. No matter what, they had to make an example out of him. They had to let the surrounding powers know that they were not easy to bully. Yi Shui's name instantly spread to the surrounding forces. The spies of the various forces were all waiting to see if Yi Shui would come and how Old K would deal with it. Many people thought that Yi Shui wouldn't go to Ran Min's city. There were also people who thought that other forces deliberately spread the news to destroy the relationship between Ran Min and the South King. No matter what, all the forces placed their attention on Yi Shui. However, it was only a few hours' journey. An entire day had passed and Yi Shui still hadn't arrived at Ran Min's city. This made the various forces very confused. Could it be that Yi Shui got scared halfway and ran away? This made the various forces anxious. They hurriedly sent people to investigate along the road, but they found nothing. The second day passed just like that. However, there was still no news of Yi Shui. This made people think that Yi Shui ran away and didn't dare to go to Ran Min's city. "Father, that brat couldn't have really run away with your daughter-in-law, right?" Song Jiji was crying at this moment. He was still thinking about Zmo in his heart. Song Kong also looked uncertain. Logically speaking, that brat dared to make a bet with him. He shouldn't be so cowardly. However, based on this distance, he didn't know how many times he could go back and forth in 2 days. The people that he sent to follow Yi Hao also didn't bring back any news. They should be dead. At this moment, 8th Wang Ye was sitting in his courtyard and listening to his subordinates report. He was delighted. It seems that brother Yi Shui really listened to my advice and left by himself. This is good too. At least he can save his own life. Yi Shui. At this moment, Yi Hao was sitting on the horse in a daze. Zmo actually had a lollipop in her mouth. Of course, it was given to her by Yi Hao. At this moment, Zmo was sucking on the lollipop and mumbling Yi Hao's name. "What's wrong? The lollipop is gone? Here you go." Yi Hao very skillfully took out a lollipop and handed it to Zmo. Zmo pouted and looked unhappy. However, when she saw the lollipop, her face brimmed with a smile again. "Aya, you've made me dizzy." Zmo put away the lollipop and immediately remembered the serious matter. "It's already the 3rd day. You didn't plan to run away from the beginning, did you?" Yi Hao glanced at Zmo and scratched his head embarrassedly. "You can't laugh at me if I tell you," Zmo glanced at Yi Hao. "I told you to run away from the beginning. What's there to laugh at?" Yi Hao's head was full of black lines. Again, he said carefully, "Not this, not this?" Zmo couldn't remember Yi Hao. What else was worth laughing at? Suddenly, she thought of something and turned pale with fright. "You didn't peek at me bathing yesterday, did you? Good Yi Shui. Now you have to be responsible for me. Tell me honestly, how's my figure?" Yi Hao hugged his head in pain. What was going on? The hole in her brain was too big. He could only tell the truth. "I'm lost." In fact, Yi Hao had felt that something was wrong from the first afternoon, but for the sake of his face, he didn't say anything. He thought that he could get there by walking forward, but the more he walked, the further he went. Just now, when he was sitting on the horse, he was analyzing the route. Zmo was stunned. The lollipop in her mouth almost fell to the ground. She asked in disbelief, "You are lost?" "Ah." Zmo held her belly and laughed out loud. Tears almost came out of her eyes. "What's so funny? There are no road signs here, and there's no navigation. Where can I find it?" Yi Hao said in a low voice. In the past, on Earth, he often got lost, let alone in this strange world. How could he know the way? As soon as he returned to Yi Hao, He took the map given by Jiu Hongling and got lost in the air while riding a giant dragon, let alone on this land. At first, he could tell the direction clearly, but now he couldn't even tell the directions. What's so difficult about this? Go and catch the person behind. Then you'll know the way. Zmo laughed so hard that her stomach hurt. She said to Yi Hao. Chapter 131. Yi Hao, is my body white? Zmo suddenly asked shyly. Yi Hao recalled the scene in his mind and said subconsciously, white. Yi Hao. You said you didn't peek. Zmo wanted to throw the lollipop in her hand at Yi Hao. However, after taking a few bites of the lollipop in her hand, she thought better of it. Besides, Yi Hao had already slipped away. After a while, Yi Hao came back with a shifty-eyed man in his hand. Young master, please spare my life. I'm just a passerby. The shifty-eyed man was thrown to the ground by Yi Hao. He quickly got up and knelt down to beg for mercy. Song Yen, level 7 martial artist. You have a sick mother at home. Yi Hao narrowed his eyes and said to Song Yen, who was kneeling on the ground. The more Song Yen heard, the more frightened he became. He kept wiping his cold sweat with his hand. Young master, please spare my life. I know I was wrong, Song Yen said fearfully. This was because Yi Hao was right. There were some things that even his mother did not tell him, but Yi Hao knew about them. Get up. Where is Ranmin's city? Lead the way. Don't try to play tricks, Yi Hao warned Song Yen. He did not want to be calculative with this kind of small fry. Song Yen was stunned. He thought that he would not be able to escape death after being discovered by Yi Hao. He did not expect that it would be so easy to just lead the way. He quickly raised his head to thank Yi Hao. However, he found a pill in front of him. When Yi Hao saw Song Yen in a daze, Zmo was also very curious. Yi Hao took back the pill and said, "This is a spiritual pill. It can completely cure your mother's illness. As long as you lead the way obediently, this pill is yours." Thank you, young master. I should die 1,000 times for following you. Song Yan's eyes were brimming with tears as he fiercely slapped his own mouth. This little spirit pill was priceless. Even if he helped Song Kong sell his life for a lifetime, he still wouldn't be able to buy this pill. Moreover, her mother's illness couldn't be delayed any longer. Otherwise, she would have gone back long ago with Yi Hao. Just for the reward money, she had followed Yi Hao for 3 days. She had already eaten all the food she had with her, and had been starving for the whole day. I won't pursue the matter with you. Can you tell me how you found out about him when you peeked at me while I was showering? Zmo asked curiously. Looking at Song Yan's expression, she knew that Yi Hao was right. Unless Yi Hao and Song Yan had colluded. But this was almost impossible. Yi Hao must have some kind of mystical immortal technique. If you want to know, give me a kiss. Yi Hao saw Zmo's curious face and said with a chuckle, "All right." Zmo thought for a while and couldn't resist the curiosity in her heart. She quickly kissed Yi Hao on the cheek and said, "Tell me quickly." Yi Hao was slightly stunned. He had wanted to use this request to make Zmo back off. Who knew that this little girl was so curious that she actually dared to kiss him? However, he absolutely couldn't tell her about the detection technique. Yi Hao had an idea and moved closer to Zmo's ear, making Zmo's ear itch. But in order to know the answer, she could only endure it. I guessed. Zmo's little face stiffened. After a while, she suddenly realized that she had been tricked by Yi Hao again and said, "Stupid Yi Hao, you lied to me again. Give me back my first kiss." "Madam, if you want to give it back, I'll give it back to you. Why are you shouting so loudly?" After being shouted by Zmo, Yi Hao was scared out of his wits. There were still 2 martial emperors hiding in the dark. If they thought that he had bullied his young lady, he wouldn't be able to live. Looking at Yi Hao's pouting appearance, Zmo said unhappily, "In your dreams. You still want to take advantage of me. Do you think we've been tricked? It's already been 3 days. How can there be any Yishue? A few of Ran Min's subordinates stood on the city wall and said unhappily, I think Yishue is most likely afraid of our heavenly king and ran away halfway. Humph, don't let me meet Yishue. Otherwise, I'll definitely drain his blood. Let's see where he gets the water from. At this time, in order to deal with Yishue, Ran Min's subordinates hadn't slept for 3 full days. At this time, they were naturally suppressing a bellyful of anger. As for the spies in the other cities, they had already cursed Yi Hao tens of thousands of times in their hearts. If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't return before the 3-day deadline, who would still be standing guard here? If they knew that Yi Hao was lost, who knew if these people would be so angry that they would vomit blood and die? In the afternoon, Yi Hao and Song Yen finally arrived at Ran Min's city. It was because he had lost his way and walked too far. If it wasn't for Song Yen, even if he was given another 10 days to half a month, he still wouldn't be able to find his way back. Young master, why don't you just leave? If you go to see Ran Min, it won't bode well for you. Song Yen couldn't bear it. Ran Min's reputation was deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Even if it was for the sake of that elixir, he couldn't just watch Yi Hao die. Song Yen struggled in his heart for a while before he caught up with Yi Hao's horse. Also, official Song, when you left, he already spread the news that you are unfavorable. If you go to Ran Min's city, Ran Min will definitely not let you go. Yi Hao was very satisfied with Song Yan's words. At the very least, his elixir wasn't wasted. Thinking of this, Yi Hao took out the elixir. Then this is for you. You don't have to follow me anymore. Seeing that Yi Hao was determined, Song Yen didn't stop him. He reached out and took the elixir. If he continued to follow Yi Hao, he wouldn't be able to get away with it. Song Yen jumped off his horse and kowtowed 3 times to Yi Hao's back. It was to thank Yi Hao for giving him the elixir, to thank Yi Hao for sparing his life, and to send Yi Hao on his last journey. Because in his eyes, Yi Hao would definitely die this time. There was absolutely no possibility of him coming back alive. Therefore, he kowtowed a few times to repay Yi Hao's kindness. As for collecting Yi Hao's corpse, he didn't even dare to think about it. Yishue seems to be here. Hearing the sound of the horse's hooves, the people of every force around the city thought of this at the same time. Yo, Emor, look at how popular I am everywhere I go. Yi Hao saw a group of people surrounding the city gate. At this time, they were all looking in his direction. Yi Hao said very arrogantly, ZMO couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him. Can't you see that these people are looking for trouble with you? You should thank the heavens if they don't cut you into pieces. ZMO was curious. What other trump cards did Yi Hao have? No matter how she looked at him, he didn't look like a reckless person. But even though he knew that he was going to die, she didn't feel anything at all. ZMO looked at Yi Hao's face and found that she still couldn't tell whether he was happy or angry. It was hard to tell. When the princess is in danger, save the princess first. The thin martial emperor said with a reproachful look on his face. This brat is courting death, but he still wants to take our princess with him. I don't think so. The fat martial emperor looked at Yi Hao's figure with admiration. Chapter 132. Stop. Are you Yishue? When Yi Hao stopped his horse at King Ran City, a leader stood out and asked loudly. Yes. Yi Hao said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. At the same time, his eyes were filled with admiration. Ran Min did not let him down. The quality of these soldiers was also very good. Looking at the scale of this city, it was not smaller than King Nan City. His expectations of Ran Min were not wasted, and his 1.5 million taels of gold were not wasted either. Good boy, it really is you. Men, capture him. Hearing Yi Hao admit his identity, the leader was surprised. He did not think that Yi Hao would really come. Although his courage was commendable, it did not change his determination to kill Yi Hao. Under the commander's command, 60 to 70 archers and a few hundred soldiers appeared around Yi Hao. They were ready for battle and surrounded Yi Hao. Boy, if you want to blame someone, blame yourself for insulting our heavenly king. What else can you say when you are about to die? The leader was a level 6 general. Because Yi Hao had concealed his strength, the leader was not afraid of Yi Hao. Moreover, there were so many soldiers here. I wonder if this lord can help me pass a message to Heavenly King Ran? Yi Hao said with a smile. He did not want to attack his own soldiers. Moreover, there were many people around who were laughing at him. Is this boy crazy? Is he still trying to rope in Ran Min at this time? He is indeed a young man. However, his courage is commendable. He knows that he will most likely die, yet he still dares to come to King Ran City. What courage! I think he doesn't know what death is. When the leader heard Yi Hao's words, he pondered. In his life, he had always admired courageous people. Otherwise, he would not have pledged his life to follow Ran Min. He observed Yi Hao. At such a young age, he was able to remain calm in the face of danger. There was no trace of fear on his face. The leader admired Yi Hao from the bottom of his heart. General Qin, this boy made us wait for 3 days in vain. Why are you wasting your breath on him? Just kill him. That's right. We can't disturb the heavenly king for this brat. Furthermore, this brat boasted shamelessly and even scolded the heavenly king. When General Qin heard his subordinate's words, he was a little hesitant. He looked at Yi Hao. Yi Hao smiled faintly. Do you have any proof that I insulted Heavenly King Ran? Everyone knows that I made a bet with Song Kong. What if Song Kong was the one behind this? As he spoke, Yi Hao glanced at Song Kang's spy. When Song Kang's spy heard Yi Hao's words, he felt guilty and immediately hid in the crowd. This scene naturally fell into General Qin's eyes. He somewhat believed Yi Hao's words. Say it. If you have anything to say, I'll immediately send someone to report it to the Heavenly King. Go and ask your Heavenly King. One day, in a restaurant, someone lent him 1.5 million gold taels. How's the food he bought with the gold taels, and whether he should return the money? There were many spies here. Yi Hao couldn't reveal his identity, so he couldn't say too much. And this 1.5 million gold taels was the development fund that he had given to Ran Min, Yu Fei and Suda. Only a few of them knew about it. Hence, as long as someone reported it to Ran Min would know instantly. However, Yi Hao's words caused a huge uproar. 1.5 million gold taels. And it was gold taels. In a place like this, it wasn't a small amount. I think this brat is really crazy. He actually came to King Ran City to ask for money. Haha, I'm dying of laughter. I thought he had something to say. Look at him. 1.5 million gold taels? I think he's crazy about money. This is just delaying his death by a little. The spies from the various factions, as well as some of the onlookers, laughed loudly when they heard Yi Hao's words. General, this brat is making a fool out of us. Ran Min will owe him money. In my opinion, we should just kill him. That's right, General. We can't let the other factions see us as a joke. Yi Hao was indifferent to the ridicule around him. He continued to speak to General Qin. Whether it's true or not, General Qin, send someone to report it and you will know the result. If you don't report it, no one will be able to escape death. Arrogant brat, what are you talking about? A deputy general reprimanded Yi Hao loudly. General Qin had been observing Yi Hao all this time. In his heart, he already believed a little about Yi Hao. However, if he reported it himself and there was no such thing, he wouldn't be able to avoid punishment. But if it was true, if he didn't report it, the punishment would be even more severe. As long as you report it, Ran Min will definitely come out of the city to welcome me into the city. Yi Hao wasn't angry at the deputy general's words and continued to speak. If you dare to make a fool out of me, I will definitely cut you into pieces," General Qin warned. At the same time, he turned around and gave some instructions to the deputy general. The deputy general looked at Yi Hao unhappily and turned to enter the city. Zmo raised her head and took out the lollipop in her mouth. She looked at Yi Hao unhappily and said, "You are lying to me again. Aren't you an orphan? Where did you get so much money to lend to Ranmin?" Yi Hao knew that Zmo would ask this. "Did I say that I borrowed it? That was what my master told me. I feel that they are the same person. As for whether it is true or not, we can only take a gamble. If you don't run first, I will cover for you." Zmo's face froze. She looked at Yi Hao in disbelief and said, "You are saying that this is a story that your master told?" Zmo felt that there was nothing left to live for. What if it is true? Yi Hao continued to tease Zmo. The onlookers were also waiting anxiously at this time. They wanted to see if Ranmin would come out or if Yi Hao was lying and would be cut into pieces. General Qin, who was closest to Yi Hao, had a dark face. He already had a feeling that he had been tricked by Yi Hao. This was because he had heard every single word that Yi Hao and Zmo had said. General Qin had unspeakable bitterness in his heart. At this time, his mood was the worst. Everyone was looking at him. If this matter was made up by Yi Hao's master, he would be blamed and would definitely be humiliated. He was also praying that what Yi Hao's master said was true. This way, he could at least save his face. Looking at Yi Hao's calm face, General Qin really could not guess what Yi Hao was thinking. Was he not afraid that his master had made up the story? Moreover, there were so many people with the same name in the Wangua continent. What if it was not the same person? General Qin realized that he was more nervous than anyone else. This was related to his image in the hearts of Ranmin and all the soldiers. Why is he not here yet? Could it be fake? After waiting for a long time, General Qin realized that there was a trace of cold sweat on his forehead. Is the Heavenly King done going to the toilet? I have something to report. The deputy general stood in the living room and kept pacing. Chapter 133. Under the threat of the vice-general, the guard could only look for Ranmin with a bitter face. "Heavenly King, General Hua is looking for you." The guard covered his nose and shouted, "Don't you know that my stomach hurts? Tell him to come here." Ranmin's voice came from the toilet. Vice-General Hua covered his nose and came to the toilet. "Heavenly King, Yi Shui said that you owe him 1.5 million gold taels. He asked me to ask you when you will pay him back." How much? He is crazy. You guys are crazy too. Ranmin said angrily. Vice-General Hua's face changed and he quickly apologized to Ranmin. He was furious. This kid really tricked us. General Qin actually believed him. Let's see how I will deal with him. Vice-General Hua angrily rushed to the city gate. After a while, Ranmin suddenly ran out with his pants up. He grabbed the guard and asked anxiously, "Where is Vice-General Hua?" The guard was dumbfounded. Seeing that Dian Wei had not pulled up his pants yet, he said subconsciously, "He just left." "Who told you to let him go?" Ranmin was furious. How much did he say? The guard's face turned bitter. Dian Wei was the vice-general and he was just a guard. He could not control him. 1.5 million gold taels. Oh no. Ranmin pulled up his pants and hurriedly ran to the city gate. 1.5 million gold taels. That was the allowance given to him by the Lord. Could it be that the Lord was here? He had not heard from the Lord for almost a year. Now that he was rejected, he kept praying in his heart, "Those bastards, please don't do anything to the Lord." Vice-General Hua, how was it? General Qin knew that the situation was not good when he saw the vice-general coming back with a dark face, but he still asked. "We were tricked by this kid." The vice-general looked at Yi Hao who was riding on the horse and said with a gloomy voice, "We were tricked by this kid." The onlookers also noticed that Ran Min did not come out and Vice General Hua's face was extremely gloomy. They started to clamor again. I told you that this kid was lying. How could Ran Min owe him money? General Qin, do you really believe anyone's words? It can't be 150 copper coins, right? Ha ha ha. Guards, take this kid down. General Qin heaved a sigh of relief. Hearing the mockery around him, General Qin waved his hand and shouted with a cold expression. Yi Hao frowned. What the hell is Ran Min doing? Wasn't my hint obvious enough? Yi Hao thought helplessly. Fatty, this brat is done for. He actually dared to lie here. The thin martial emperor gloated. The fat martial emperor ignored the thin martial emperor and shook his head with a smile. He still thought highly of Yi Hao. At the very least, not many people of Yi Hao's age could remain calm in the face of danger. With General Qin's order, the archers instantly pulled their bows to the maximum. Yi Hao frowned. Was he really going to attack his subordinates today? Give me. General Qin raised his hand and signaled the archers. Yi Hao narrowed his eyes and prepared to summon the dragon and leave at any time. At worst, his identity would be exposed, but it would only ruin his plan. Stop. Just at the crucial moment, a deafening voice resounded in the city. The archers immediately put down the bows in their hands because they were very familiar with this voice. Who else could it be other than Ran Min? The gloating crowd's smile froze. They didn't understand why another accident happened at this crucial moment. Could it be that Ran Min wanted to attack personally to show off his prestige? Ran Min was panting heavily. Luckily, he arrived in time. However, when he saw the young man on the horse, he thought for a while and knew what was going on. He didn't expose him. Brother Yi Shui, please come to my Ran King city for a gathering. I have offended you just now. Ran Min cupped his fist and apologized. What's going on? Ran Min actually called him brother. Does Ran Min really owe him money? The people of the major forces were shocked. This was because Ran Min's attitude towards Yi Hao was too friendly. In the past half a year, Ran Min didn't give face to anyone, not even to the hosier. Now, he actually called Yi Hao brother. This was bad news for many of the snobbish people. Based on the situation, South King City and Ran King City's alliance was bound to succeed. More people were curious about who this Yi Shui was that Ran Min had to personally come out of the city to welcome him. Ran Min brought Yi Hao and Zmo into the Castellan's residence. Could be seen that Ran Min was really focused on developing his strength. The Castellan's residence was very simple, and there weren't even any decorations. Ran Min saw that there was no one around and Zmo was naturally recognized by Ran Min as his mistress. He said excitedly, Ma. You want to ask about my master, right? Sigh, my master just passed away. Yi Hao didn't wait for Ran Min to call him master and quickly stopped him. Master Zhu actually passed away. Sigh. Old K's reaction was also very fast as he quickly said with regret. Yi Hao looked at Zmo guiltily. When he realized that Zmo's attention wasn't here, he heaved a sigh of relief. Yi Hao sat down. You should know why I'm here. I'm here on behalf of Prince Nan. I hope that you can cooperate with Prince Nan. Yi Hao's sitting posture was exactly the same as before. This made Ran Min even more certain that Yi Hao was his master. He just didn't understand why he couldn't tell the truth in his own residence. However, Yi Hao must have his reasons for doing so. Ran Min looked at Zmo cautiously and said with a smile, Of course. Master, I'm indebted to Master Zhu. Of course, I'll help his disciple with this request. Alright, I'll go back now. Yi Hao looked around and picked up the vase to take a look. Feeling bored, he put it down again and said. Ran Min quickly stood up. Let me send you off, brother Yi Shui. No need to trouble yourself. I'm in a hurry to go back to South King City and report to Prince Nan. Yi Hao smiled and waved his hand. He pulled Zmo and walked out. When Ran Min saw the two of them disappear from his sight, he quickly walked to the vase and poured out a piece of paper. He looked around and realized that there was no one around. He immediately opened it and read it. After reading it, Ran Min quickly destroyed the paper. Ran Min immediately gathered the soldiers and announced that he would cooperate with South King City. This news spread quickly among the major powers. The East, West, North and South Kings were furious. Originally, they wanted to see a rift between Prince Nan and Ran Min. However, they didn't expect a nobody to be the disciple of Ran Min's benefactor. Just like that, South King City and Ran Min City reached an agreement. The only one who didn't have any reaction was the fifth prince. He was unpredictable. Logically speaking, he should be the most nervous. After all, the stronger the other powers were, the greater the threat to his position. However, he didn't seem to care. Chapter 134. Yi Hao. On the way back to South King City, Zmo suddenly shouted. Yi Hao's expression stiffened. Zmo giggled and said, "Why are you so nervous? Are you Yi Hao?" "How is that possible?" Yi Hao's smile was a little awkward. He wondered if Zmo had been staying by his side to investigate if he was Yi Hao. Look at how scared you are. I'm just joking with you." Zmo saw Yi Hao's awkward expression and smiled playfully. At Zmo's request, Yi Hao did not return to South King City directly. Instead, he turned around and went to other cities to play. Yi Hao thought that there was still a month before the competition for the throne. There was still a lot of time, so there was no point in returning to South King City now. Along the way, the laughter of young men and women filled the air. Half a month later, Yi Hao opened his hazy eyes in the morning and walked to Zmo's room. He knocked on the door and said, "Mo, it's time to get up. We should hurry back." In less than half a month, the competition for the throne would be held in the capital of the country of Yi. Yi Hao's plan was to start the return journey today. Why is there no movement? Yi Hao pushed lightly and found that the door opened. He quickly walked into the room and found that it was empty. "Master, you're here. The lady who accompanied you asked me to pass this to you." At this time, a waiter came up to clean the room and happened to see Yi Hao. He took out a letter from his chest and handed it to Yi Hao. Yi Hao took the letter, took out some broken silver, and handed it to the waiter. "Brother Yi Hao, thank you for playing with me these days. From Mo who loves you." Yi Hao read the letter in shock. He also knew that Zmo had already guessed his identity. No wonder she asked him for more than 10 packs of lollipops 2 days ago. At first he felt strange. Now that he thought about it, it turned out that Zmo had already planned to leave. Through the letter, Yi Hao learned that his father's kidnapping. His father's abduction was related to Zmo. Zmo's appearance in the country of Yi was also to look for him. Her goal was to bring him back to the country of Yi. However, Zmo was compassionate and was afraid that the two martial emperors would know Yi Hao's identity. She could only find an excuse to leave. As for his father's safety, Zmo told him that as long as he did not appear, his father would be safe. Furthermore, he should not go look for her before reaching the realm. How did I offend the martial emperors? Yi Hao was very puzzled because Zmo had repeatedly warned him not to look for her before he reached the martial god realm. That way, he would not be able to save his father's life and might even lose his own life in vain. Could it be related to my mother? But Yi Hao had a bold guess. He had never heard anyone mention his mother since he was young. However, Yi Hao could not understand. If it was his mother, why would she threaten his life? Thinking of this, Yi Hao did not dare to think further. He was afraid that he would not be able to accept it. If it was really because of his mother, moreover, Zmo did not leave any information about herself in the letter. This made Yi Hao even more confused. Great Sun Dynasty, wait for me. Yi Hao wanted to find out about the power behind ZMO. There was only one clue, and that was the Great Sun Dynasty. Father, I will find you. I will solve the mystery myself. Yi Hao clenched his fist. Looking at the tear stains on the letter, he could not help but feel his heart ache. Silly girl, wait for me. 10 days later, Yi was very nervous. The entire country was on high alert. The 5 major powers gathered in the capital of Yi. They had decided to choose a true emperor. The rest would give up their power unconditionally. It had to be said that danger and benefits coexisted. If they won, they would obtain the entire Yi. Most importantly, they would be recognized by the 10,000 countries continent and become a true duchy. If they lost, they would be happy for nothing and would have to hand over their power. The 5 princes were not the only ones present. Yan Huang Tower, Zhao Country, Qian Country, a mysterious power, and 2 marquis-class powers were also present. Oh my God, don't tell me I got lost at this crucial moment again. Yi Hao did not have the energy to complain. He should have reached the capital of Yi 5 days ago. However, it was starting tomorrow, and he seemed to have lost his way again. Prince Nan's military flag. Seems like I made the right choice this time. Late at night, just as Yi Hao was about to give up, he suddenly saw a military camp. He walked closer and was delighted. He immediately asked the giant dragon to find a deserted place and let him down. The night guard saw Yi Hao's figure from afar. He raised his torch and asked cautiously, "Who is it?" "I am Yi Hao. Please report to Prince Nan." Yi Hao walked out and smiled. "All right, wait a moment." The guard did not recognize Yi Hao, but he had heard of Yi Hao's name. He immediately asked a soldier to watch over Yi Hao while he went to report. "Father, Yi Shui is back." When Song Jiji received the news, he immediately ran to Song Kang's tent and said anxiously. At this moment, Song Kang was still awake and was preparing for tomorrow. When he heard Song Jiji's words, the brush in his hand fell to the table. Because of Yi Hao, he had been scolded by Prince Nan. Song Kang could clearly feel that after that incident, Prince Nan's attitude towards him was not as warm as before. However, Yi Hao had disappeared for almost a month. After his performance, the gap between him and Prince Nan finally disappeared. At this crucial moment, Yi Hao actually returned. How could he accept this? "Father, why don't we go and kill him now?" Song Jiji made up his mind and said. Song Kang immediately shook his head. "Right now, Ran Min is with us. If we attract his attention, neither of us will be able to escape." "Father, what do you think of Prince Nan's attitude towards you now?" Song Jiji suddenly asked. Song Kang's expression froze. Seeing Song Jiji's expression, he guessed. We can't do this now. This is a crucial moment. We will lose more than we gain." "But father, how much hope do you have for Prince Nan to take the throne?" Song Jiji asked unwillingly. "With Ran Min's help, at least 50%. Song Kang said confidently. One must know that 50% was already very high. With a 50% chance, it was at least higher than the others. But if Prince Nan fails, we won't have a chance. Song Jiji said worriedly. "And father, can you really kneel down, kowtow, and slap Yi Hao?" "Father, don't hesitate. Let's just take the army and find a city. Father, you can call yourself a king. Why do you have to lower yourself to them?" Song Jiji saw that Song Kang was moved and continued. "All right, go and call Generals Ding Feng and Zhang Bao over. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.